Chapter 226. Zhuang Yutong, you're awake. I thought you were possessed by a ghost. You scared me to death. Zhuang Yutong opened her eyes and saw Su Manyu complaining. Although she was complaining, Su Manyu's eyes were filled with worry. Are you alright? You fainted all of a sudden. Su Manyu looked at Zhuang Yutong. What's wrong with you? Zhuang Yutong felt a little dizzy. She said to Su Manyu, I'm fine. Su Manyu looked at Zhuang Yutong with an evil expression as she said, should we go check on Lin Qian? Didn't you promise Uncle Ji to deliver her medicine? You can send the medicine over. I won't go. I'm not feeling well, Zhuang Yutong said. Su Manyu saw that Lin Qian did not look well. She nodded and left with the medicine bag. Before she left, Ning Shu said, when I come back, I'll tell you about Lin Qian's terrible condition. Zhuang Yutong felt like she was in a dream, but she remembered it clearly in her mind. It didn't feel like a dream. After Su Manyu left, Zhuang Yutong closed her eyes and slept for a while. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Zhuang Yutong climbed down from the bed and opened the door while asking, who is it? Zhuang Yutong opened the door and saw a rather unexpected person at the door. Zhuang Yutong stuttered, why are you here? It was Ji Qingyuan's father, Ji Jinyan. Ji Jinyan walked into the dormitory, looked into Zhuang Yutong's eyes and said, I'll treat you to a meal. Why? Zhuang Yutong asked in a daze. She was not familiar with this man at all. They had only met once, but he actually came to her dormitory and said that he wanted to treat her to a meal. Ha ha ha. Take it as my thanks for your medicine. I heard from Su girl that you were in the dormitory. I asked you to deliver the medicine personally. Why didn't you go? Ji Jinyan's tone was very domineering. Zhuang Yutong, was this person sick in the head? Change your clothes. I'll treat you to a meal. Ji Jinyan glanced at Zhuang Yutong. This person was sick. Ji Jinyan raised his wrist, looked at his watch, and said, Miss Zhuang, please hurry up. My time is very precious. Zhuang Yutong, wiping his tears, what to do if I meet a lunatic? Which, save me. Don't you have nice clothes to change into? In return for the medicinal powder, I can give you some. Ji Jinyan saw Zhuang Yutong's confused expression and seemed to be very considerate. With a stiff face, Zhuang Yutong said, please leave. I'm going to change. Ji Jinyan grunted and turned to leave. Zhuang Yutong wanted to bang her head against the metal bed. What kind of person was this? When Zhuang Yutong changed her clothes and went out, Ji Jinyan frowned but didn't say anything. The two of them went downstairs. Zhuang Yutong's eyelids twitched when she saw the luxury car parked in front of the dormitory. Ji Jinyan opened the car door for Zhuang Yutong. Zhuang Yutong sat in the car and felt out of place with Gij. Everything in the car was luxurious and fragrant. She looked at the clothes she was wearing. Zhuang Yutong decided that she would never associate with such people again. She didn't want to feel inferior and torment herself. Ji Jinyan sat in the car and saw Zhuang Yutong's eyes flickering. He smiled. You will have this life in the future. Zhuang Yutong didn't comment. Instead, she was more concerned about why this man was looking for her. They were eating at a Western restaurant. Zhuang Yutong sat opposite Ji Jinyan and said lightly, sorry, I don't know Western dining etiquette. Ji Jinyan said, I can teach you. No need, Mr. Ji. I want to know why you're looking for me. Zhuang Yutong asked. You're making me lose my appetite. Ji Jinyan took a sip of red wine and looked at Zhuang Yutong in a daze. Your eyes are exactly the same as my wife's. When I first saw you, I thought he was standing in front of me. Zhuang Yutong, oh. Ji Jinyan raised his eyebrows. Her reaction was so calm. Aren't you curious about my wife? Ji Jinyan asked. Zhuang Yutong. Why should I be curious? We don't know each other. Mr. Ji, are you looking into my eyes to comfort yourself because my eyes are similar to your wife's? Or do you want to keep me as your wife's substitute? Su Manyu said you love your wife very much, but your current actions make me doubt your loyalty to your wife. Zhuang Yutong stood up. Sorry, I'll leave first. I don't know how to eat Western food. Goodbye, Mr. Ji. Zhuang Yutong only wanted to study hard so that she could have a job after graduation to reduce the burden on her family. Ji Jinyan and she were from different worlds. Life was already so difficult, why should she play with the rich? Ji Jinyan watched Zhuang Yutong leave the restaurant and raised his eyebrows. Loyalty to his wife. When Zhuang Yutong returned to the dormitory, Su Manyu had already returned. Su Manyu immediately said excitedly, Lin Qianqian's leg is going to be amputated. Her leg is seriously injured and the infection is very serious. We can only amputate it. I don't know if Ji Qingyuan will still like Lin Qianqian with a broken leg. Zhuang Yutong silently looked at Su Manyu's happy face and was speechless. Su Manyu's face fell. Zhuang Yutong asked, what's wrong? I'm getting engaged, Su Manyu suddenly said. Zhuang Yutong, why so sudden? Zhuang Yutong asked. You haven't even graduated yet. You don't understand the lifestyle of people in our class. We can still get married before we graduate. Marriage doesn't affect our lives. We can still have fun as usual. Su Manyu sighed. Zhuang Yutong asked again, who are you getting engaged to? Ji Qingyuan. Su Manyu rolled her eyes. Zhuang Yutong, the riches circle is so messy. Zhuang Yutong sighed. Damn, why is it so frustrating to get engaged to Ji Qingyuan? Damn, I have to get involved with Lin Qianqian again. It's so annoying just looking at her. It was obvious that Su Manyu didn't want to get engaged to Ji Qingyuan. People who want to live with each other for the rest of their lives should find someone they like, Zhuang Yutong said. Zhuang Yutong said with disdain, you're indeed a country bumpkin who doesn't know anything. We're combining interests. It has nothing to do with feelings. Don't you like Ji Qingyuan? Zhuang Yutong looked at her from the corner of her eyes. Damn, let's not talk about this dark history. I'd rather like a country bumpkin like you than Ji Qingyuan, Su Manyu said. Zhuang Yutong's mouth twitched. I don't need you to like a country bumpkin like me. You should go and like Ji Qingyuan. When did I say I liked you? I was just making an example. It means that Ji Qingyuan is not worth mentioning in my heart, Su Manyu quickly said. Zhuang Yutong, damn, what a vicious word. Look at how scared you are. Why would I like a country bumpkin? Su Manyu said with disdain. Her expression didn't look too good. She couldn't help but push Zhuang Yutong. I won't like you. Zhuang Yutong, what's wrong with you? Chapter 227. My lady, what are you doing? Qing Zhu saw Ning Shu smash the shark pearl and quickly said, My lady, this is the dowry that the marshal gave you. There is only one in the world. There was only one in the world, so it was good. Rather than giving it to the little fox, it was better to smash it herself. Ning Shu clapped her hands and said, I am not in a good mood, so I smashed a pearl for fun. My lady. Qing Zhu looked at Ning Shu and did not know what to say. Clean up the things on the ground. I am going to take a nap. Ning Shu returned to her bedroom and prepared to cultivate her peerless martial arts. She needed to take care of her body first. She meditated for half a day. Ning Shu felt hungry and opened her eyes. It was already dark. Qing Zhu was anxiously pacing around outside. When she saw Ning Shu come out, she let out a sigh of relief and asked, My lady, do you want to eat dinner now? Yes. Ning Shu sat on a chair as a palace maid served the dishes. Beside her, Qing Zhu said, "Your Highness, the little prince came over in the afternoon. I told him that your Highness was resting, so the little prince left." Ning Shu made a sound of acknowledgement and ate the food. It tasted really good. Qing Zhu carefully looked at Ning Shu and advised, "Your Highness, the little prince is still young, so he's naturally a bit playful. Perhaps it's because studying is really too hard." Ning Shu put down her chopsticks. Qing Zhu's expression changed. She quickly bowed and said, "I have overstepped my boundaries. I deserve to die." Ning Shu looked at this girl. She grew up with the original owner of the body. After the original owner died, she went into hiding. She wanted to take revenge for the original owner. She wanted to poison the little fox, but her plan was seen through and she was poisoned by Qing. Qing Zhu was born in the marshal's residence. The marshal's residence was executed and her family was killed. In order to take revenge for her master and family, she took the risk. Of course, the result was tragic. "Qing Zhu, get up." Ning Shu lightly said, "Being born in the royal family, how can there be a beautiful childhood? They are provided for by the common people of the world. They wear luxurious clothes and have servants to serve them. They are not like ordinary children who don't have enough to eat or warm clothes. Ordinary children even have to run around for their family's livelihood and they are very young. What kind of good childhood is there to speak of? You have to bear the responsibility of your position." Ning Shu said indifferently. In the end, Qingwang ended up in such a pitiful state. Why would he have to pay for his own laziness and willfulness? Of course, it was also because of the self-righteous indulgence of the little fox. If one didn't have the life of a main character, then one should work hard. Ning Shu did not know how to educate the child. She had never given birth to a child before, so she did not know how to educate a child. For the time being, she did not want to see the little munchkin. Qing Zhu comforted Ning Shu, "The little prince will definitely understand her ladyship's painstaking efforts." Children all had rebellious tendencies. The more pressure they were under, the more they would react. He could only take it slow. For the next few days, Ning Shu stayed in her bedroom and did not go out. Even when the concubines came to pay their respects, Qing Zhu rejected them, saying that the empress was not feeling well. These concubines could only reluctantly return. Even when the news spread in the palace that the empress was sick, Qing did not step into the harem to ask about the empress's health. He did not even pretend to comfort her. Ning Shu did not care very much. She even felt very fortunate. It seemed that Qing was now going to keep his chastity. Ning Shu did not want to roll with Qing at all. She just did not know how Qing solved his physiological needs. Could it be that he masturbated himself? Ning Shu cultivated day and night. Finally, this body was out of breath after walking a few steps. It seemed that the original owner was very angry. Thinking that it had been such a long time, she should communicate with the little munchkin, Qingwang. Ning Shu asked Qing Zhu to call Qingwang over. When Qingwang looked over, his face was red and covered in sweat. Ning Shu narrowed her eyes. She saw that there was a strand of golden fur on Qingwang's shoulder. It seemed that this little guy was playing with the little fox again. Qingwang properly bowed to Ning Shu. "Aken greets Muhu. Muhu is in good health." Ning Shu looked at Qingwang like this. Qingwang's red face flashed with a trace of uneasiness and uneasiness. Ning Shu gently pulled Qingwang over and reached out to brush off the golden fox fur on his shoulder. "Muhu." Qingwang saw Ning Shu like this and his expression became even more uneasy. He lowered his head and did not dare to speak. "Qingwang, did you play with the little fox today?" Ning Shu asked gently. "Tell Muhu, where did you go?" "Muhu, Aken did not." Qingwang lowered his head and lied. Ning Shu said, Mohu does not mean to blame you. In the future, you can play with the little fox. Really? Mohu? Hua Qingwang suddenly raised his head and looked at Ning Shu with shining eyes. Ning Shu nodded. You can. Mohu, you are so good. Hua Qingwang squeezed into Ning Shu's arms and twisted his body to act spoiled with Ning Shu. Ning Shu was not used to this and pulled Hua Qingwang out of her arms. She said unhappily, you are already a man, yet you are still acting spoiled with Mohu. If you want to play with the little fox, Mohu has a condition. As long as you complete it, you can play with the little fox however you want, Ning Shu said seriously. Hua Qingwang immediately patted his small chest and said, Mohu, I can will definitely do well. Mohu doesn't have many requirements. Practice 20 characters every day and memorize a poem. As long as you complete it, you can go play. The sooner you complete it, the longer you can play with the little fox. Ning Shu gently coaxed him. Rather than make him study day and night, it was better to set a number. At least he would have a goal to strive for. Yes, Mohu. I will definitely complete it. Hua Qingwang promised, his face shining. Ning Shu nodded. As long as you can complete it, that is good. But you must complete it before you can play, understand? Qingwang, you really like the little fox. Yes, the little fox is very cute and very smart. I have never seen such a smart animal. Hua Qingwang nodded repeatedly. He looked very cute. Ning Shu played with her nails and said with a smile, is that so? I heard that your father also likes it. The little fox is so cute. Who wouldn't like it? Hua Qingwang said matter-of-factly. Ning Shu thought, I don't like the one in front of you. Ning Shu patted Hua Qingwang's shoulder. Remember the promise you made to Mohu. You are a man, and a gentleman's word is as good as a whip. I will remember it, Hua Qingwang said loudly. Hua Qingwang said loudly with the vigor of a child. He looked very cute, just like a little adult. Qing Zhu, who was next to Ning Shu, laughed. The palace maids in the palace all covered their mouths and snickered. Ning Shu laughed. Go play. Don't forget the 20 characters and the poem. Bring them to Mohu tonight for inspection. When Hua Qingwang left, his footsteps were like the wind. Qing Zhu, Ben Gong hasn't been able to sleep well at night recently. I keep feeling like there's something rustling around. It should be a rat. Get someone to put some rats in a hidden corner. Ning Shu said faintly. Qing Zhu agreed and went to do it. Chapter 228. At night, Hua Qingwang obediently brought his homework over. It was the 20 characters that Hua Qingwang had written. Ning Shu tested Hua Qingwang to see if he could recognize these characters. Hua Qingwang then recited a poem. He shook his little head like an old scholar reciting the book. After he finished reciting, he looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded and praised him, very good, Qingwang is very good. Hua Qingwang's face was red. He puffed out his chest and said, Son knows even more. To be honest, Ning Shu was really embarrassed. His handwriting wasn't as good as a 5-year-old child's. Ning Shu felt that he would definitely not use a pen in the future. When you play with the little fox, you have to be careful. Don't go to places that are too dangerous. Do you understand? Ning Shu reminded Hua Qingwang. Hua Qingwang nodded and said, Mohu, you are so good. Ning Shu patted Hua Qingwang's shoulder. He originally wanted to pat his little butt, but he felt like a strange auntie. He could only pat his shoulder. Go back and rest. Ning Shu said with a smile. He then reminded him, don't get scratched by the little fox. It is, after all, an animal. It is not good for the body to be scratched. When you wash at night, have the wet nurse wash with mugwort leaf water. Do you understand? Son understands. Hua Qinhuang nodded. After Hua Qinhuang left, Ning Shu let out a heavy breath. It was so difficult to communicate with a child. Nyang Nyang, today is the 15th. The emperor should come. Qing Zhu looked outside the hall, but it is already so late. Ning Shu yawned, wash and sleep. There is no need to wait. Qing Zhu looked at Ning Shu with comforting eyes and said, Nyang Nyang, it must be that the emperor is too busy. Too busy to sleep. Coming to the empress palace was basically just to sleep. It was only a few steps away. He just didn't want to come. Ning Shu had just laid down on the bed when he heard the sharp voice of a eunuch outside, the emperor has arrived. Ning Shu climbed out of bed and put on his clothes. Hua Qin walked in. Ning Shu bowed to Hua Qin. Qinxia pays respect to the emperor. Hua Qin was tall and had a belt around his waist, which made his waist look even more narrow. He gave off a very sexy feeling. The outline of his face was very deep and three-dimensional, and his nose was like a hanging gallbladder. The empress is going to bed already? Hua Qin asked, does the empress not remember that today is the 15th? Ning Shu could clearly feel that Hua Qin was angry. Hua Qin's face was expressionless as he frowned slightly. Ning Shu was speechless. If you don't want to come, then don't come. You look like you were forced to come, which made everyone's balls ache. Hua Qin was indeed forced to come. When he went to court today, old Xiao said that he hadn't visited the harem for a long time. To put it bluntly, he wanted him to dote on his granddaughter. Hua Qin dawdled until he arrived at the empress's palace. When he left the imperial study, the little fox hugged his leg and didn't let him go. She looked at him with tears in her eyes, which made Hua Qin very uncomfortable. He tried his best to persuade the little fox to not be so sad. Now that he saw that Ning Shu had fallen asleep first, Hua Qin was furious and even hated her. Hua Qin opened his arms and waited for Ning Shu to change his clothes for him. He said lightly, go to bed. Ning Shu nodded. Okay. Seeing that Hua Qin didn't want to roll with her, Ning Shu was relieved. Empress, change my clothes for me, Hua Qin said coldly. Ning Shu, 0, Ning Shu climbed out of bed again and took off Hua Qin's clothes. Then the two of them lay on the bed in silence. Hua Qin simply turned his back to Ning Shu. Ning Shu, what kind of virtue was this? If it was the original owner, her heart would have been broken by Hua Qin's cold violence. Ning Shu also turned over and was back to back with Hua Qin. Damn, it was really uncomfortable to have someone next to him. He was already tall and strong. He took up half of the bed and didn't let him sleep properly. Ning Shu closed his eyes and fell asleep in a daze. Suddenly, he was awakened by the shrill scream of an animal, which was full of pain. Hua Qin hurriedly got up and stepped on Ning Shu's leg without caring about the person sleeping next to him. Ning Shu immediately kicked Hua Qin away. Hua Qin accidentally fell to the ground, but he didn't care at all. With an anxious face, he shouted, where are you? The fox screamed. It was a bit like a high-octave dog bark, but also like a woman's scream. It was especially terrifying in the middle of the night and made people shudder. Hua Qin's face was very anxious. Ning Shu got down from the couch and asked Qing Zhu to light up the candle. Hua Qin directly snatched the candle. He clearly heard crying pitifully not far away. In the end, Hua Qin found the little fox under the window of the room. One of the little fox's forelimbs was caught in a rat trap and was bleeding. Hua Qin's heart ached immensely. Call the imperial physician, call the imperial physician. Hua Qin's eyes were red as he roared at Ning Shu. Hua Qin was calm, but the original owner had never seen him so emotional. Call the imperial physician. Ning Shu said to Qing Zhu. Qing Zhu hurriedly went to call the imperial physician. She was frightened by Hua Qin's appearance. Hua Qin squatted down and wanted to remove the rat trap, but he was afraid of hurting the little fox. He was so anxious that he didn't know what to do. The little fox cried at Wuxia with tears flowing down her face. She looked very pitiful. Ning Shu watched from the side. This fox was covered in gold and looked very beautiful. Her eyes were very lively and there was a cunning look in her eyes. But now, her eyes were dim and she kept crying at Wuxia. It was hard to imagine that an animal's body could contain a human soul. Ning Shu also learned something new. Could it be that the target of her missions in the future might also be non-human? Wuxia suddenly turned his head to look at Ning Shu and asked sharply, "Empress, why do you have such a dangerous thing in your bedroom?" Ning Shu said calmly, "I haven't been sleeping well these days. There are always rats at night, so I asked the palace maids to make a rat trap. I didn't expect it to come. It never comes to my palace. Who knew that something like this would happen?" This fox hadn't been in the palace for long. It hadn't become familiar with the ground and hadn't become as lawless as in the plot. "I don't know why it came today," Ning Shu said very sincerely. Wuxia was speechless for a moment. He couldn't say that it was because he was here and who relied on him. As the emperor, Wuxia would never say such words. At least, he wouldn't say such words in front of Ning Shu, the empress. Wuxia touched the little fox's head and comforted her, "It's okay. The imperial physician will be here soon." Woo. The little fox lay on the ground. Her voice was very weak from the pain. She was cursing in her heart. How could she be so unlucky? How could she be caught by this thing? Ugh, it hurt. It was all because of Wuxia, that bastard. If she didn't follow him, she wouldn't be injured. The more the little fox thought about it, the sadder she felt. She felt wronged and the pain in her wound made her cry. Wuxia wanted to hug the little fox. Chapter 229. Ning Shu looked at Wuxia's gentle appearance. It was clearly a person and a fox, but there was an indescribable ambiguity between them. Oh my God, love really could transcend race and gender. The imperial physician rushed over in a hurry. Before he could salute, Wuxia said anxiously, "Quickly save my pet." Yes. The imperial physician didn't even have time to catch his breath before he rushed to save the little fox. Wuxia watched from the side. When he saw the imperial physician touching the little fox's body, his face immediately darkened. He stared fiercely at the imperial physician's hand. He almost chopped off the imperial physician's hand. It was a strong sense of possessiveness. The little fox whimpered. The wound on its leg was very painful. Wuxia said repeatedly, "Be gentle. Be careful." Yes, Your Majesty." The imperial physician had to pay attention to his subordinates while being nagged by Wuxia. Ning Shu didn't say anything. He drank water at the side. He poured a cup of water for Wuxia and said, "Your Majesty, have some tea. It will be fine." Wuxia was already anxious, but this tactless empress still wanted him to drink water. Could he drink it now? Wuxia directly pushed Ning Shu's hand away. The teacup fell to the ground and the porcelain pieces shattered. Ning Shu hurriedly apologized, "Your Majesty, it's Qinxia's fault. Please don't be angry." There was still an imperial physician in the room. Wuxia took a deep breath and said, "It's fine. I don't blame you." Woo. The little fox whimpered in pain. It looked at Wuxia with its watery eyes. Wuxia and the little fox's eyes met. He immediately moved away from Ning Shu and comforted, "Don't be afraid, I'm here. You will be fine." Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and covered his mouth with a handkerchief. He almost laughed out loud. He felt that the little fox now regarded Wuxia as its possession. Wuxia kept calling for the imperial physician to be gentle. It took him a long time to rescue the little fox's forelimbs from the trap. Its fur was already soaked with blood, and it looked like it was seriously injured. It would probably need to recuperate for a period of time. The imperial physician placed the little fox on the bed and picked up the fur around the wound. Then, he sprinkled some medicinal powder on the wound and bandaged it up meticulously. "Your Majesty, the wound has been treated. Don't let it get wet during this period of time. This official will come to change the medicine every 2 days." The imperial physician wiped the sweat on his head and cupped his hands towards Huaqing as he spoke. Huaqing sat by the bed and nodded with a tense face. "You can leave." The imperial physicians left like a swarm of bees, leaving only Ning Shu, Huaqing, and the dying little fox lying on the bed in the room. "You're not allowed to put such dangerous things in the palace in the future. Look at what you've done to Huaqing," Ning Shu said coldly. Ning Shu's expression was indifferent as she bowed and said, "Qinxie will remember." Huaqing carefully picked up the little fox on the bed. Ning Shu said, "You can sleep by yourself tonight." Then, she left with the little fox. Ning Shu curled her lips and saw the bright red blood stains on the bed sheet. She said to the pale-faced Qin Zhu, "Remove this bed sheet and make the bed again. This consort wants to sleep." "Yes, Your Highness." Qin Zhu had the palace maids change the bed sheet. Ning Shu said, "Change the quilt cover as well." After changing the bed sheet, Ning Shu yawned and lay on the bed. Qin Zhu and Ning Shu comforted her, "Your Highness, don't be too sad." "Sad? This consort isn't sad. The one who's sad right now is someone else." Ning Shu sneered. Look at Huaqing's distressed expression. Originally, it was just in case, but she didn't think that the fox would actually fall for it. Relying on the fact that it was an animal, it could come and go as it pleased in the palace. It could go anywhere. The little fox especially liked to run to the concubines' palaces and secretly listen to gossip. Ning Shu didn't want her own palace to become a place where others could come and go as they pleased. It was likely that the little fox wouldn't come out to cause trouble for a long time. It also wouldn't be able to play with Huaqing Wang. "Qin Zhu, go to the Imperial Household Department tomorrow and see if there are any cute and big pets for Qing Wang." Ning Shu said this and closed her eyes to sleep. Oh my, it was better to sleep alone in a big bed. Compared to Ning Shu's comfort, Huaqing was like an iceberg. She held the little fox in her arms and said angrily, "Let's see if you'll run around again in the future. Didn't I promise you that nothing would happen between me and the Empress? Now you've hurt yourself like this." The little fox looked at Huaqing pitifully, but Huaqing's face was cold. In fact, his heart had already softened. He said coldly, "Let's see if you dare run to the Empress Palace again." "Woo!" the little fox whispered. It stuck out its pink tongue and licked Huaqing's palm. It used its little sharp teeth to bite Huaqing's finger. It seemed to be telling him not to be angry. After being bitten by the little fox, Huaqing's entire body felt like it had been electrocuted. His whole body was numb. His finger was bitten by the little fox, and there was a slight pain. It was an indescribable pleasure. Immediately, he felt his lower abdomen heat up. It was very exciting. This was a feeling that Huaqing had never experienced in more than 20 years. With just this bite, Huaqing suddenly felt the intoxicating love between a man and a woman. That kind of uncontrollable impulse and desire. Huaqing looked at the little fox in his arms with a burning gaze. Its eyes were very clear, and they were filled with innocence and confusion. Huaqing's lower abdomen had already raised its head. Enduring the burning heat in his body, Huaqing placed the little fox on the dragon bed and said in a hoarse voice, "Hurry up and sleep." The little fox narrowed its eyes and licked Huaqing's hand. Huaqing almost couldn't control himself. He gritted his teeth and said, "Hurry up and sleep." Only then did the little fox fall asleep contentedly. Huaqing was about to explode from holding it in. When the little fox finally fell asleep, Hua Qing sneaked into Imperial concubine Xian's palace. Hua Qing didn't want to see Ning Shu at all. He blamed him in his heart for causing Hu to be injured. On the bed, Hua Qing was all kinds of passionate and fierce. He tortured Imperial concubine Xian until she was half dead, but the woman on the bed was very satisfied. After he vented his desire, Hua Qing's heart suddenly felt guilty. When he thought about how the little fox was injured while he was rolling around with another woman, Hua Qing felt very uncomfortable. He quickly got on the bed and put on his clothes. Ignoring Imperial concubine Xian's urging to stay, he hurriedly left. When he returned to the bedroom, Hua Qing looked at the little fox sleeping on the dragon bed. His heart suddenly softened. He reached out a finger and touched the tip of its pink nose. He even wanted to bend down and kiss it. No, Hu was only his pet. How could he have such an impulse for an animal? It was too unbelievable. But in Hua Qing's heart, he thought that the smart and cute Hu wasn't a fox at all. Perhaps it was a fox immortal who had cultivated successfully. Hua Qing's heart really hoped that Hu could transform into a human. Chapter 230. Hua Qing didn't care much about the matters between men and women. Otherwise, Hua Qing would rarely go to the harem with so many beauties. But now, Hua Qing had an incomparable and uncontrollable impulse. Hua Qing's joy was mixed with a sense of shame, making Hua Qing feel very conflicted. Ning Shu slept very well that night. When she woke up in the morning, she felt refreshed. Just as she left the palace, the little munchkin, Hua Qingwang, who was holding something in his arms, bumped into Ning Shu's arms. He was practically twisting his body as he whined to Ning Shu. "Mother, is this puppy for me?" "Yes, this puppy is for you." Ning Shu sat down and looked at the puppy in Hua Qingwang's arms. This puppy was only a month old, and its body was very furry. Ning Shu patted the stool next to her for Hua Qingwang to sit next to her. Hua Qingwang carefully held the puppy. Ning Shu looked at the male puppy and said to Hua Qingwang, "The little fox was injured last night, so it can't play with you in the future. Let this puppy accompany you. From now on, besides studying, you have to take care of this puppy. There are a lot of dirty things on the puppy's body, so you have to bathe it often." "Is the little fox injured? Is it serious?" Hua Qingwang asked anxiously. Ning Shu said indifferently, "It's not serious. It's just that its leg is injured, so it can't walk for the time being. Don't disturb its recovery. Your father won't let you see the little fox, so don't disturb it for the time being." "I will remember." Hua Qingwang nodded. "I will listen to mother. You're still a child. Eat with mother," Ning Shu said to Hua Qingwang. Hua Qingwang was quite cute, and his body had a milky fragrance. Hua Qingwang sat next to Ning Shu. Ning Shu gave him some food, and Hua Qingwang quickly said, "Thank you, mother." Ning Shu smiled. What a polite child. Hua Qingwang picked up a steamed bun and placed it next to the puppy's mouth. The puppy only stuck out its tongue and licked it. Ning Shu said, "The puppy is too small to eat this. Is it troublesome to make some porridge for the puppy later? Is Qingwang regretting it now?" Hua Qingwang was afraid that Ning Shu would change her mind, so he quickly said, "Mother, I will definitely take good care of the dog." After breakfast, Ning Shu took the medicinal powder and applied it on the puppy to kill the insects. Hua Qingwang also helped and applied the powder on his hand. "Qingwang, it's a small life. You have to take good care of it. Since you've chosen it, you have to take responsibility for it. Do you understand?" Ning Shu instructed Hua Qingwang. "I'll remember everything. I'll definitely take good care of him." Hua Qingwang's face flushed red, and he seemed very surprised. He acted coquettishly in Ning Shu's arms. "Mother, you're so nice. I'll definitely study hard and take good care of the puppy. Go." Ning Shu patted Hua Qingwang's shoulder and instructed Hua Qingwang's wet nurse to not let the little prince be scratched by the puppy. After Hua Qingwang left, Qing Zhu bowed to Ning Shu and said, "Nyang Nyang, the concubines of the various palaces have come to pay their respects. Let them in." It was time to see these women. Ning Shu stroked her wide sleeves. Ning Shu walked into the main hall from the side hall. As soon as she entered the main hall, Ning Shu's eyes were dazzled. She looked at the room full of women. There were all kinds. There were charming, cold, plump, and fragrant. The room was filled with fragrance. It was simply a pleasure. This concubine pays her respects to the Empress. May the Empress have good fortune and peace. The concubine Ning Shu bowed. Ning Shu looked at these beautiful women. So beautiful. Rise. Ning Shu said faintly. As soon as Ning Shu's voice fell, a woman suddenly said, "Nyang Nyang, last night the Emperor stayed in noble consort Xian's palace." Ning Shu's expression was indifferent, but she was surprised. Last night, Little Fox was injured. Hua Qing didn't accompany Little Fox and actually had sex with a woman. Wasn't Hua Qing abstinent? He hadn't had sex with concubines for many months. Why did he suddenly have sex with concubines? Noble consort Xian has arrived. The eunuch outside the hall shouted. Noble consort Xian only arrived at this time. When noble consort Xian walked in, her body was a bit stiff. When she walked, her waist swayed slightly. Noble consort Xian's face was pink. Her entire person seemed to be shrouded in the clouds. She was in high spirits. It seemed that Hua Qing really did have sex with noble consort Xian last night. As soon as noble consort Xian walked in, she was met with all kinds of envious and jealous gazes. Noble consort Xian endured her discomfort and bowed to Ning Shu. "This concubine pays her respects to the Empress. I'm really unwell and came late. Please forgive me." Ning Shu nodded and let noble consort Xian sit down. "Noble consort Xian, yesterday was the 15th. Why did the Emperor come to your palace?" A concubine directly tried to sow discord. Noble consort Xian's expression changed. She quickly explained, "Last night, the Emperor suddenly came to this concubine's palace in the middle of the night. Last night, the Emperor suddenly came. Without saying anything, he pressed her under his body and then did all kinds of things to her." Thinking of the scene last night, noble consort Xian's face turned red again. Her beauty was indescribable. Seeing noble consort Xian like this, the other concubines felt a burst of envy and jealousy. The Emperor hadn't come to the inner palace for a long time, but noble consort Xian had taken the lead. If it was the Empress, it would be fine to endure, but it was a concubine. Everyone almost tore the handkerchief in their hands. Ning Shu felt that it was quite boring. So many beautiful women were jealous of a man, but Hua Qing didn't like these beauties. He liked a fox. It was simply ridiculous. Ning Shu suddenly felt that the women in this room, including himself, were quite miserable. Their lives were worse than a beast's. Ning Shu reintroduced these concubines. For example, the one who had just instigated discord was Lan Jiayu. Then there was the incomparably cold consort De, and the enchanting noble consort Song. Ning Shu felt that it was boring and had everyone leave. It was quite boring to gather together and say such sour words. It was better to practice martial arts. The concubines all left. Only noble consort Xian stayed. Ning Shu asked, "Noble consort, is there anything else?" Noble consort Xian hesitated and said, "Nyang Nyang, last night." Ning Shu waved her hand and interrupted noble consort Xian, "It's a good thing that the Emperor is here. It's also good to give birth to an heir for the Emperor." Noble consort Xian didn't know if the Empress was telling the truth or not. She bowed and left. After she left, Qing Zhu and Ning Shu comforted, "Nyang Nyang. Qing Zhu originally wanted to comfort Ning Shu, but she didn't know what to say. Ning Shu didn't care who Huaqin was here with. She only needed to complete her task. The marshal's residence was executed. Moreover, the dragon robe and the correspondence of the enemy country were found in the residence. This matter wasn't done by Huaqin. Ning Shu twisted her head off. Moreover, it meant that there was a spy in the marshal's residence. It must be Huaqin's people. As long as the marshal's residence was there, her position was stable. Huaqin didn't dare to directly depose her. The most important thing was to stabilize the marshal's residence. Chapter 231. Ning Shu pretended to visit the little fox. The little fox was lying on the dragon bed. Other than the cloth wrapped around her forelimbs, everything else was fine. She was full of energy. When the little fox saw Ning Shu, her eyes were filled with hostility. She used her other forelimb to carelessly play with the ball. The ball was exquisitely made and the material was very soft. The little fox was speechless. She hated this empress. She was Huaqin's wife, so the little fox hated her. Her legs were injured because of this woman and she couldn't move for a long time. Huaqin didn't allow her to run. She was bored to death. This palace was so boring. She was so unlucky. How did she become a fox? Heavens, heaven and earth, how could she be so unlucky? Ning Shu looked at the little fox, whose eyes were darting around. She looked extremely intelligent and human-like. No wonder Huaqin doted on this little fox so much. Why are you here? Huaqin walked in and saw Ning Shu in the room. His face sank. When he saw the little fox playing on the dragon bed, his face softened. This concubine pays respects to the emperor. Ning Shu respectfully bowed to Huaqin. Huaqin grunted. He didn't even look at Ning Shu. He sat on the bed and reached out to touch the little fox's head. His eyes were full of affection. The little fox licked Huaqin's finger. Huaqin's eyes deepened. Ning Shu felt like an outsider. He couldn't integrate into the atmosphere between the man and the fox. It was very awkward. The little fox seemed to have skin cravings and enjoyed Huaqin's touch. Ning Shu smacked his lips. He felt a little disgusted when he thought about the relationship between the two of them. It was beyond the relationship between a master and a pet. Ning Shu stood at the side like a block of wood. Huaqin asked Ning Shu, "Is there anything else, Empress?" "This concubine is here to deliver medicine." Ning Shu took out the medicine bottle and placed it on the table. "This medicine powder is very effective for wounds." "Sorry to trouble you, Empress," Huaqin said indifferently. His fingers stroked the little fox's golden fur. It was so furry that Huaqin's fingers almost sank into her fur. Ning Shu bit his lips and looked at Huaqin with a bitter expression. Huaqin looked up and met Ning Shu's eyes. "Is there anything else?" Ning Shu blinked and let his eyes fill with tears. He said bitterly, "Your Majesty, you went to noble consort Xian's palace last night." "Your Majesty, yesterday was the 15th. Huaqin's expression darkened. His first reaction was to look at the little fox. The little fox immediately pointed its butt at Huaqin and wagged its golden tail. It was clearly angry. "Is the Empress reprimanding me? This emperor is the son of heaven, is there any place that this emperor cannot go?" Huaqin almost flew into a rage out of humiliation. He looked at Ning Shu with an unfriendly gaze. Clearly, he was dissatisfied with Ning Shu saying such things in front of the little fox. Huaqin had never treated the little fox as an ordinary fox. She was very smart and knew everything. Now that she was like this, it meant that she was angry. Ning Shu's expression was very sad. He couldn't speak and looked like he had lost his soul. The little fox looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu bared his little fangs as if he was mocking him. Ning Shu looked at her indifferently. Finally, he bowed to Huaqing. This concubine will take her leave. Huaqing waved his hand. He seemed to be very impatient with Ning Shu and told him to leave quickly. As soon as Ning Shu went out, he heard the crisp sound of porcelain falling to the ground. He looked back and saw the little fox sitting on the table. She had pushed the medicine bottle she had placed on the table off the table. It fell to the ground and some of the medicine powder spilled out. The little fox whimpered at Huaqing. Huaqing's face was full of affection. He tapped its pink nose. "You little fellow, if you don't like the Empress things, then we won't accept the Empress things in the future." The little fox was a little happier. It raised its head slightly and whimpered angrily at Huaqing. Huaqing seemed to be able to read minds. He explained to the little fox. "Last night, we were wrong. We shouldn't have gone to noble consort Xian's palace. You little thing, you were jealous." The little fox nuzzled Huaqing's neck and whimpered. "From now on, we will only like you, little thing. Naughty little thing." Huaqing felt a piercing pain in his neck. The little fox was biting him, but it wasn't very painful. He knew that the little fox was punishing him. Huaqing's face showed an intoxicated and forbearing expression. Ning Shu didn't know how the man and fox communicated. It was amazing. Was this the legendary telepathy? They could understand each other's thoughts with just a look. How amazing. TSK, TSK, TSK. Ning Shu rubbed his eyes and decided not to watch. He went back to his palace and let them be lovey-dovey. "Nyang Nyang, madam is here. She is waiting for Nyang Nyang in the hall." Ning Shu had just arrived at the palace when Qing Zhu came to greet him. Ning Shu hurried into the hall and saw a woman wearing a noble robe sitting in the hall. This was the original owner's mother, Zhao Shi. This subject greets Nyang Nyang. When Zhao Shi saw Ning Shu, her eyes were full of concern. Ning Shu hurriedly supported Zhao Shi. "Mother, please rise. How is Nyang Nyang's health? I heard that Nyang Nyang wasn't feeling well." Ning Shu asked Zhao Shi. "Did the imperial physician prescribe medicine?" Ning Shu smiled and said, "Mother, your daughter is fine. How are grandfather and father?" "Your father is fine. Your grandfather is old and has some minor problems. It's nothing serious." Lady Zhao nodded and said, "Your father heard that you were not in good health in the palace, so he was a little worried." "Mother, I'm fine. Don't let father worry. Your daughter is fine." Ning Shu said to Zhao Shi with concern. "Mother, you also need to take care of your health." Zhao Shi looked around and whispered to Ning Shu, "Nyang Nyang, yesterday was the 15th. Was the emperor resting in your palace?" "Ning Shu, he was in daughter's palace." Ning Shu changed the topic and had Qing Zhu take the box. Ning Shu said to Zhao Shi, "Mother, this is all the tonics that daughter gave to grandfather and father. You should take them back." Zhao Shi waved her hand, "The family doesn't lack for things. Nyang Nyang can keep these things. This is daughter's filial piety." Ning Shu forced Zhao Shi to accept it. When she handed it to Zhao Shi, she whispered, "Give it to grandfather." Zhao Shi's expression was normal. She said with a smile, "Many thanks for Nyang Nyang's reward." Zhao Shi and Ning Shu both had things on their minds. Then, after a few words, Zhao Shi left. Ning Shu could only hope that grandfather could understand what he wanted to say. Thinking that he was going against Huaqing, the emperor, Ning Shu's legs went soft. From the memories of the original, Huaqing was a person with true ability. He was a man who was scheming and suspicious. Ning Shu had to be careful. He couldn't reveal any flaws. They had been husband and wife for many years. Even if Huaqing didn't like his wife, he still understood Xiao Xiao. When Ning Shu was in front of Huaqing, she had to pretend to adore him and help him. Chapter 232. Little Munchkin, Hua Qingwang, came over with the puppy. He handed his handwriting to Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at Hua Qingwang's handwriting and said happily, "Qingwang's handwriting is much better than before." Hua Qingwang looked at Ning Shu with watery eyes and said shyly, "Mother, I will study hard. Recently, father hasn't tested me on homework. I have memorized a lot of books." Now, Hua Qingwang was very disappointed. It was as if he had worked very hard only to find that there was no test. He didn't have the chance to show off. Ning Shu reached out and picked up the fur on the neck of the puppy in Hua Qingwang's arms. The puppy struggled and looked very cute. "Mother, be gentle." Hua Qingwang looked at the puppy with heartache. Ning Shu stuffed the puppy back into Hua Qingwang's arms. She looked at him seriously and said, "Qingwang, you are not studying for anyone else. You are not studying for father or mother. You are studying for yourself." Ning Shu still felt that Hua Qingwang was too lonely. There were no children of the right age to play with in the palace. That was why he was so attracted to the little fox in the plot. Xiao Xiao loved her son, but she put more pressure and expectation on Hua Qingwang. Hua Qingwang couldn't bear the burden. He should find a partner for this child. He couldn't play with a dog every day. He should find a study partner. Ning Shu first thought of the original owner's brother. He had a son who was 1 or 2 years older than Hua Qingwang. This child was also beheaded in that accident. The original owner thought of his nephew. He had died at such a young age. Because of him, the whole family was executed. The emperor was heartless. His son was unfilial. There were too many things weighing on his heart. In the end, the original owner chose to commit suicide. "Do you still remember your brother Qin Yang? Mother will let brother Qin Yang come into the palace to accompany you, okay?" Ning Shu asked Hua Qingwang. "Mother wants Qingwang to be happy." "Really?" Hua Qingwang looked at Ning Shu and said happily, "There will be a brother coming into the palace to accompany me?" "That's right." Ning Shu saw how happy Hua Qingwang was. He should let Hua Qingwang interact with other children. Ning Shu sent someone to inform his grandfather of this matter. The next day, Xiao Qingyang was sent to the palace. Xiao Qingyang looked strong, like a little calf. At first glance, one could tell that he was from a military family. Speaking of which, the Xiao clan was also filled with talents, with 4 generations living under the same roof. But in the end, not a single one of them survived, which made one's heart ache. "Auntie." Xiao Qingyang called out to Ning Shu. "Call her imperial concubine, not auntie." Zhao Shi unhappily patted Ning Shu's head. "Nyang, this boy is unruly. I'm afraid that he will offend the other Nyang when he enters the palace." "Grandmother, don't pat my head," Xiao Qingyang said loudly to Zhao Shi while rubbing his head. "Mother, don't worry. Your daughter will take good care of Qingyang." Ning Shu let the eager Hua Qingwang greet Xiao Qingyang. Ning Shu let the 2 children go out to play. Seeing Hua Qingwang so happy, Ning Shu also felt relieved. This could be considered as doing something for the original owner's son. Zhao Shi. Ning Shu said, "Father told me to thank Nyang for the things. Father said that he knows and will take care of it. Nyang doesn't need to worry. Mother, the marshal's mansion is like the sun in the sky right now. There will always be some rascals scheming to deal with the marshal's mansion. We have to be careful with every step we take. Mother and sister-in-law must restrain the people in the mansion. Also, don't let people of unknown origins come to the marshal's mansion and use the marshal's mansion's prestige and power to bully others." Ning Shu suspected that the dragon robe and letter were the doing of the marshal's mansion. Right now, the marshal's mansion was a target. It had an empress and even gave birth to the eldest son of the first wife. The marshal held a large number of troops in his hands. No matter how one looked at it, the marshal's mansion was flourishing and had boundless wealth. Zhao Shi quickly said, "I will definitely pay attention." Xiao Qingyang stayed in the palace. Ning Shu let the two children live together. Every day, she set a time for them to study and play. They had to follow this schedule. Otherwise, she would send the puppy and Xiao Qingyang away. Hua Qinhuang was now used to having someone to accompany him. If he returned to his old lonely days, he would rather die than live. He promised Ning Shu that he would study hard with Xiao Qingyang. Ning Shu nodded. She had the two children come to her palace to eat 3 meals a day. Ning Shu felt that Hua Qinhuang had grown taller over this period of time. His appetite had clearly increased. When Hua Qinhuang and Xiao Qingyang were eating, they would sneakily throw meat under the table for the puppy. Ning Shu pretended not to see it. Hua Qinhuang was now very close to Ning Shu. Sometimes, he wouldn't call her mother, but Ning Shu mother. Although this brat wasn't her biological son, she had raised him for a period of time. Ning Shu's heart softened. This child was just too lonely. "Have you played with the little fox recently?" Ning Shu patted Hua Qinhuang's head and asked. Hua Qinhuang said, "The little fox hasn't come out of Imperial Father's chambers recently. I haven't played with it." Ning Shu nodded. "The little fox's claws are very sharp. Play with it less in the future. It's a beast after all. It will hurt if you get scratched. Although your brother Qingyang knows some martial arts, I can't protect you all the time." Hua Qinhuang nodded. "I won't let brother Qingyang get hurt. Brother Qingyang and the puppy will play with me." Ning Shu let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, this brat didn't play with the little fox and run around blindly. "Go play with brother Qingyang. Be careful." Ning Shu reminded Hua Qinhuang. Ever since the little fox got injured, Hua Qing hadn't entered the harem for a long time. A group of concubines ran to Ning Shu and cried. Ning Shu felt a headache when she saw such a large group of women sobbing in front of her and wiping their tears with handkerchiefs. Damn it, she really felt that being the empress was miserable. She had to share her husband with so many women. Her husband didn't fuck off with these women, but these women still cried and made a fuss in front of the empress, asking the empress to find her husband and fuck off with these women. Damn it, it couldn't get any more miserable. It wasn't easy to be a virtuous empress. Ning Shu silently watched these women cry. The person who should be crying the most should be the original owner of this body. Why did it feel like this empress was the head housekeeper who came to her for everything? If you want to sleep with Hua Qing, go get him yourself. What was the point of crying to her? Ning Shu said indifferently, "All right, stop crying. His Majesty is busy with court matters and has no time to enter the harem. You should be more concerned about His Majesty's health. Instead of crying in front of me, you might as well make some tonic soup and send it to His Majesty." The concubines looked at each other in dismay. In the end, they took their leave and walked away with light steps. They were probably going back to make something to eat. The little fox would probably get angry again when she saw the things the concubines sent over. Ning Shu expressed that she was doing it on purpose to annoy people. There were so many concubines in the harem, but she insisted on having an ambiguous relationship with a fox. Although she was human on the inside, she was a beast on the outside. Chapter 233. When the concubines received Ning Shu's instructions, they sent food to him 3 times a day, constantly trying to make their presence known. Hua Qing's expression didn't change in the face of the concubines' enthusiasm. He didn't summon any of the concubines, afraid that the little fox would be angry. But the little fox was very angry when she saw the soup and pastries. The emperor was indeed a stud horse. The little fox despised Hua Qing in her heart and felt sour in her heart. Hua Qing doted on her a lot, but she was a fox. There were so many picturesque beauties in his harem. What was she? Oh heavens, how could she be a fox? The frustrated little fox ruined all the pastries and soup, making a mess on the table. The little eunuch next to her lowered his head and pretended not to see. Huaqing didn't care about the soup. Instead, he said to the little fox in a doting manner, "Shouldn't your anger be appeased? Little thing, why are you so cute?" The little fox whimpered and turned to leave in a tsundra manner. Her whole body was full of arrogance that said, "I'm very angry. Don't talk to me. Even if you talk to me, I'll ignore you." Huaqing laughed and picked up the little fox. "Why is your temper so wild? You're so cute. I don't know what to do with you." The little fox was angry, but when she saw Huaqing so happy, she couldn't help but bare her teeth and fiercely bite Huaqing's finger. This time, the little fox used a lot of strength and bit Huaqing's finger. The wound bled. "Your Majesty," the little eunuch asked in shock, "should we summon the imperial physician?" "There's no need." Huaqing thought for a moment and directly put the finger that the little fox bit into his mouth. He could even feel the little fox's breath on his finger. Huaqing's heart was beating like thunder. He felt that he was indirectly kissing the little fox. Huaqing couldn't help but move his tongue. Although his mouth was full of the taste of blood, Huaqing felt his whole body heat up. What was wrong with him? Was he sick? Woo woo woo. The little fox saw that she had bitten Huaqing and was bleeding. She immediately looked at Huaqing with an anxious and guilty expression. Her wet eyes were filled with tears. "Your Majesty, this little fox has injured the dragon body. Do you want to?" Before the little eunuch could finish speaking, he met Huaqing's cold gaze. He was so frightened that he immediately plopped down. "Your Majesty, spare my life, Your Majesty, spare my life. Drag him down and give him 20 beatings. He'll know what to say and what not to say," Huaqing said coldly. Immediately, guards came in and dragged the little eunuch out. The personal eunuch beside Huaqing said, "Your Majesty, I will also go out to supervise the execution." Huaqing wished that there was no one else in the room. He waved his hand and dismissed his personal eunuch, Eunuch Chiu. After Eunuch Chiu left, Huaqing hugged the little fox and said, "Little thing, your anger has subsided. Look, you've bitten me. If there's a next time, I won't let you off so easily." Although Huaqing said that he was going to punish the little fox, his tone was very charming. The little fox blushed a little. She was secretly glad that she had a fox face. Otherwise, she would definitely be blushing right now. Thinking about how this man doted on her so much, the little fox's tears fell. To have a man like this to dote on her was a little compensation from the heavens for transmigrating into a fox. "Little fox, don't cry. I was only joking when I said that I was going to punish you. I said that you're not allowed to cry again. If you cry again, I'll kiss you." Huaqing said those words in a hurry. He was stunned and didn't dare to look directly into the little fox's eyes. The little fox lamented in her heart again. Why was she a fox? There was such a super handsome man in front of her and she couldn't even eat him. She was really going to break down. The little fox stuck out her tongue and licked Huaqing's lips. Then, she intimately licked Huaqing's cheek. "Since you dote on me so much, I'll give you a kiss." Huaqing felt as if his whole body was soaked in boiling hot water. It was so uncomfortable that his lower body reacted. "Little thing, you're so naughty." Huaqing's voice was a little hoarse. He placed the little fox on the bed. "I'm going to review the memorials. Be good here." The little fox lay on the dragon bed in boredom and rolled around. Huaqing looked like he was seriously reviewing the memorials, but the cinnabar brush in his hand didn't fall down for a long time. He gripped the cinnabar brush so tightly that the veins on the back of his hand popped out. It looked like he was enduring a lot of pain. He stared straight at the memorials in front of him. His mind was filled with the little fox's cute appearance and the bone-deep tremor of her tongue licking his lips. He was going crazy. He was really going crazy. Outside the hall, the little eunuch was pressed down on a bench by the guards. He complained tearfully to his master, Eunuch Chio. "Master, this servant didn't do anything wrong. You insensible thing. Can't you see that His Majesty is the most powerful person in the palace and that fox is the second most powerful person? Even Her Majesty the Empress can't compare to this fox. In the future, if you encounter anything, just turn a blind eye." Eunuch Chio looked at the little eunuch with disappointment. The little eunuch cried and said, "Master, it's just an animal." Still not shutting up. Do you think you've lived for too long and want to die? Eunuch Chio picked up his horsetail whisk and hit the little eunuch on the head. He ordered the guards, "Hit." The guards picked up the wooden planks and hit the little eunuch on the buttocks. It was so painful that the little eunuch cried out. The guards were a bit lighter on account of Eunuch Chio. When the 20 planks came down, the little eunuch's eyes had already rolled back. Eunuch Chio sighed and hurriedly found an imperial physician. In any case, the eunuch was his disciple. In the palace, they could be considered people who supported each other. Ning Shu was watching Hua Qingwang and Xiao Qingyang right when Qin Zhu walked into the hall and whispered into Ning Shu's ear, "Nyang Nyang, Xiao Zi, who serves His Majesty, has been hit." Ning Shu raised her eyebrows and said to the two children, "Continue writing. You're not allowed to be lazy. Imperial Mother will come to check in a moment." When they arrived at the main hall, Ning Shu asked, "Did you find out what the reason was?" Qin Zhu shook her head, "I only heard that His Majesty said it himself. I'll go find out more." Ning Shu waved her hand and said calmly, "No need. Don't worry about this matter. Send some medicine to Xiao Zi. I'll remember." Qin Zhu left. Ning Shu tapped his finger on the table and made a rhythmic sound. This matter was most likely related to the little fox. Hua Qing's love for the little fox was built on the pain of others. The more callous he was to others, the more it would appear that Hua Qing doted on the little fox. Unprincipled and bottomless doting, it felt like the little fox was about to ascend to the heavens. Ning Shu suddenly laughed. True love was standing on the opposite side of the world. He didn't know if the little fox could be with Hua Qing when he stood on the opposite side of the world. Chapter 234. Imperial Mother, I've finished writing. Can I go play with older cousin? Hua Qingwang and Xiao Qingyang came over from the side chamber, holding the written characters in their hands. Ning Shu took a look and said, "Starting tomorrow, Qingyang will write 10 more characters every day. Your handwriting is really ugly. This consort remembers that your father's handwriting was very good. My father knows how to write. I've never seen my father write before. My mother said that my father's handwriting is like a dog's scratch." Xiao Qingyang asked Ning Shu with a shocked expression. Ning Shu was speechless. Naughty child. Hua Qingwang covered his mouth and laughed. Ning Shu waved his hand. Go play. After the two naughty children left, Ning Shu planned to enter the bedchamber to meditate and train his body before doing anything. Not long after, Hua Qingwang ran over in tears with a panicked expression. Ning Shu shouted, "Imperial Mother, save me. Imperial Father is going to beat Brother Qingyang to death." Ning Shu hurriedly got down from the bed. With a heavy expression, he picked up Hua Qingwang and asked, "Where is he?" "In the Imperial Garden." Hua Qingwang was so scared that he started crying. Imperial Father is so scary. Ning Shu quickly arrived at the Imperial Garden and saw Xiao Qingyang being pressed down on a stool, struggling like a little calf. "Stop, this consort stops." Ning Shu saw that the board was about to land on Xiao Qingyang's body and hurriedly called out. Xiao Qingyang was only a 7 or 8-year-old child. If this board hit him, wouldn't it kill him? Huaqing, that bastard. Huaqing's expression was cold when he saw Ning Shu arrive. The little fox was in Huaqing's arms. The golden fur on her body reflected a beautiful luster under the sunlight. In all honesty, this fox was really beautiful. People couldn't help but want to stroke her fur. If it wasn't for Huaqing, this fox's fur would probably have become a scarf around the necks of the concubines in the harem long ago. Ning Shu put Huaqing down and bowed. He asked Huaqing, "Your Majesty, did this child Xiao Qingyang do something wrong? You're running around the palace with the prince. As the prince's study companion, aren't you leading the prince astray by being so unrestrained?" Huaqing's expression was very ugly. Xiao Qingyang was from the marshal's mansion, and Xiao Xiao actually had the marshal's mansion's child accompany him to study. Did she think that this position would be Huaqing's in the future and had already arranged for someone to be by his side? Ning Shu took a deep breath and said, "Qingyang is still young. I want Qingyang to have a playmate, so I called Qingyang into the palace." Huaqing's eyes were deep, and no one could understand his current emotions. He said lightly, "A loving mother leads to a useless son. Don't forget that Qingyang is a child of the royal family. He doesn't need any playmates at all. Some people are destined to be lonely. Come, beat this dog to death for Zhen. How can he be Zhen's child if he's so frivolous?" Huaqing said with a heavy expression. Immediately, guards surrounded the puppy and hit it with a board. The puppy cried out miserably. It was hit in the head by the board and walked unsteadily. "Mother, mother, save the puppy. Mother." Huaqing pulled on Ning Shu's sleeve and cried for help from Ning Shu. Ning Shu shook Huaqing's head. This wasn't just about a dog. The puppy that was hit in the head fell to the ground and twitched. It whimpered twice and was hit in the head by another guard. The puppy's head was immediately deformed and blood splattered out. "Ah!" Huaqing screamed. Ning Shu quickly picked up Huaqing and let him lie in his arms. The moment the puppy was killed, Huaqing covered the little fox's eyes. The little fox's body trembled as if it was afraid. Huaqing moved closer to the little fox's ear and whispered, "Don't be afraid of Zhen. Zhen won't do this to you. That was just an animal. You are the most special in Zhen's heart." Huaqing comforted the little fox and turned to Ning Shu. He said coldly, "The empress doesn't just have to manage the harem. She also has to take care of the child. As a child of the royal family, you can't be so willful." Ning Shu held the trembling Huaqing and bowed to Huaqing. She sighed and said, "Zhen will remember." Huaqing ignored the sad Ning Shu and left with the little fox. Ning Shu glanced at Huaqing's back and smiled coldly. Huaqing really was a strong opponent. Auntie. Xiao Qingyang's eyes were a little red. His legs were so weak that he couldn't get up. Ning Shu had the eunuch carry Xiao Qingyang. The puppy's body was collected and brought back. Huaqing kept sobbing in Ning Shu's arms. His grip on Ning Shu tightened. His whole body was trembling, and his eyes were closed as if he didn't dare open them. Ning Shu sighed and gently patted his back. He said softly, "Qingyang, don't be afraid. Mother will protect you. Mother will protect Qingyang." Ning Shu carried Huaqing all the way back to the bedroom. Huaqing didn't let go of Ning Shu, so Ning Shu kept hugging him. "Auntie, I didn't take good care of the little prince." Xiao Qingyang wiped away Ning Shu's tears. "What happened?" Ning Shu asked with a frown. Xiao Qingyang told him everything that had happened. The two little turnips were chasing each other in the imperial garden. The little fox, who had recovered from its injuries, came out for a stroll. It ran into two people and a dog. The little fox saw the white and tender little boy playing with a stupid dog, so it ran over to tease the stupid dog. But how could a dog be as smart as the little fox? When it smelled the scent of the little fox, it chased after it. Qin came to find the little fox. When he saw the little fox being chased by a dog, he immediately became angry. Especially when he saw the two animals rolling around and playing, he became even more angry and jealous. A strong possessiveness exploded in his heart. He directly walked over and kicked the dog away. He patted the dust off the little fox and held it in his arms. He looked at Hua Qingwang and Xiao Qingyang with an unfriendly gaze. Hua Qingwang hadn't seen his father in a long time. He was very happy to see Hua Qing. Before he could say anything, he was scolded by Hua Qing for being ignorant and incompetent. He scolded him for not having any royal etiquette. When he found out that Xiao Qingyang was Hua Qingwang's study companion, Hua Qing had Xiao Qingyang flogged when the prince made a mistake. Then, Hua Qingwang went to find Ning Shu. A dog had died in this accident, but Ning Shu knew that Hua Qing was warning him and the Xiao family. The little fox could really cause trouble wherever it went. Ning Shu couldn't directly confront Hua Qing without being completely confident. If you want to destroy someone, you must first make them crazy. Let's see what kind of crazy things Hua Qing would do to protect the little fox. He felt that it was really ironic. He had no feelings for his wife and didn't even have the slightest bit of gratitude. He was also indifferent to his own son, but he gave his passion to a fox. He gave almost all of his feelings to the fox. Ning Shu cursed inwardly. The female lead's golden finger was too big. It was so bright that he couldn't look straight at it. Chapter 235. Hua Qingwang was tired from crying in Ning Shu's arms. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. Ning Shu sighed and placed Hua Qingwang on the bed. She had Qing Zhu draw some warm water to wipe the tears off Hua Qingwang's face. Hua Qingwang's eyes were red and swollen. Ning Shu stayed by the bed. Xiao Qingyang blamed herself for not protecting her cousin and the little puppy's death. Auntie! Xiao Qingyang called out to Ning Shu. Ning Shu rubbed her forehead and said, "Qingyang, you must have been frightened. Go eat something and rest. Now that Qingwang is like this, Auntie hopes that you can stay by his side." Hua Qingwang was probably hurt by today's events. "Auntie, Qingyang will take good care of my cousin." Xiao Qingyang immediately patted her chest and promised Ning Shu. In the middle of the night, Hua Qingwang had a fever. His temperature was very high. Ning Shu was prepared. She had Qing Zhu bring a bowl of medicine to Hua Qingwang. However, Hua Qingwang only drank half of the medicine before spitting out the rest. "Nyang Nyang, should we call the imperial physician?" Qing Zhu was so anxious that her face was red. "Call the imperial physician over and then boil the medicine." Ning Shu wiped Hua Qingwang's body with a wet handkerchief. Hua Qingwang was too frightened today. Ning Shu wasn't surprised that he would fall ill. However, when she saw that Hua Qingwang was really sick, Ning Shu was still very anxious. The little person was lying on the bed and talking nonsense. Ning Shu was really afraid that Hua Qingwang had a fever. Qing Zhu called the imperial physician over to perform acupuncture on Hua Qingwang. When the medicine was served, Ning Shu immediately took the bowl of medicine and fed it to Hua Qingwang. "Nyang Nyang, let this servant do it." Qing Zhu saw that Ning Shu was anxious and quickly said. Ning Shu took a deep breath. "It's fine. I'll do it myself." "Nyang Nyang, do you want to invite His Majesty over?" Qing Zhu Ning Shu asked. Since the little prince was so seriously ill, His Majesty should come over to take a look. Ning Shu originally wanted to ask why she had called that damned person over, but considering that there was a room full of grand doctors present, she didn't want her gentle and empathetic image of the Empress to collapse. She could only suppress her grief and say, "It's already midnight. The Emperor has already gone to bed. Tomorrow morning, the Emperor has an early court session. Don't disturb the Emperor's rest." The imperial physician looked at Ning Shu with pity in his eyes. Ning Shu's mouth twitched, and he wiped Hua Qinhuang's body with a handkerchief. Your Highness. Qing Zhu's eyes were slightly red. Ning Shu felt that she was really miserable. The emperor that Ning Shu said had gone to bed wasn't asleep. Instead, he was lying on the bed, looking at the little fox sleeping on the table. The little fox looked at Hua Qin warily. When faced with such a gaze, Hua Qin felt as if his heart was being squeezed by a large hand. It was very uncomfortable. The fox he liked should have a sly, cute, clear, and charming look in her eyes. She shouldn't be looking at him with such a wary and unfamiliar gaze. The little fox wasn't afraid of Hua Qin. Although Hua Qin was the emperor, he was very good to her. But when he ordered the puppy's death today, the little fox was scared out of her wits. She finally understood that this man was an emperor who could live or die as he pleased. The little fox empathized with the puppy's death. She was no longer a human, but a fox. Human life was worthless, and she was just an animal. Hua Qin got up from the bed and walked in front of the little fox. He reached out and hugged the little fox. The little fox's fur stood on end. Hua Qin gently stroked the little fox's back and whispered softly, "You shouldn't be afraid of me. You are mine. Seeing you play with other people makes me very uncomfortable. Although you are a fox, I have never thought of you as a fox in my heart. You are more important than anyone else in my heart. You are my pet. I dote on you and love you dearly." Hua Qin looked at the little fox with a burning gaze. I have never seen such a beautiful and intelligent fox. When she met Hua Qin's gaze, the little fox's heart beat rapidly. When she heard Hua Qin's words, the little fox felt that she was very lucky. Although she had become a fox, she had met Hua Qin. The Transmigration god didn't treat her unfairly. The little fox felt that she was letting down Hua Qin's love by being so afraid of him. She looked at him with a guilty gaze and stuck out her tongue to lick Hua Qin's fingers. Hua Qin's body trembled slightly, and then he said happily, "Fox, you're not angry anymore." When the little fox saw the smile on Hua Qin's face, her eyes were filled with hearts. He really was a super handsome guy. Do I look good? Hua Qin smiled brightly at the little fox. The little fox immediately nodded. You look good, you look very good. Hua Qin stroked the fox's smooth ears and carried the little fox to the dragon bed. The man and the fox snuggled together. Ning Shu watched over Hua Qinhuang for the entire night. After the imperial physician's efforts, Hua Qinhuang's fever finally subsided and he stopped talking nonsense. Ning Shu sat by the bed and watched over him. He said to Xiao Qingyang, who was beside him, "Qingyang, go to sleep. Auntie, Qingyang is not tired. Qingyang will watch over cousin until he wakes up." Xiao Qingyang's eyes were red. He had cried before and stayed up all night. His eyes really looked like a rabbit's eyes. Ning Shu didn't force him. If he was tired, he could lie on the bed and sleep for a while. Imperial concubine, drink some hot tea. Qing Zhu held a teacup. Ning Shu took it and gulped it down. Then, she used a handkerchief to wipe the sweat off Hua Qinhuang's body. Hua Qinhuang slept for a day and a night before waking up. He opened his eyes and looked at Ning Shu in a daze. Ning Shu was dumbfounded. Could it be that there was something wrong with the fever? Imperial Mother, Qinhuang is scared. Hua Qinhuang's voice was very hoarse. Ning Shu quickly poured some water for Hua Qinhuang to drink. As Hua Qinhuang drank the water, he cried. Ning Shu hugged Hua Qinhuang and said softly, "Qinhuang, don't be afraid. Imperial Mother will definitely protect Qinhuang. Cousin, you're awake." Xiao Qingyang, who was lying on the bed, woke up. When he saw that Hua Qinhuang had woken up, he was so happy that he wanted to cry. Cousin. Hua Qinhuang's body was very uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable that he wanted to die. Ning Shu told Xiao Qingyang to go down and eat breakfast. Only Ning Shu and Hua Qingwang were left in the bedchamber. Ning Shu looked at Hua Qingwang and asked, "Qingwang is blaming Imperial Mother. You're blaming Imperial Mother for not saving the puppy, aren't you?" Hua Qingwang's tears fell again. Ning Shu asked hoarsely, "Why, Imperial Mother?" Ning Shu shook his head and said indifferently, "Because Imperial Mother couldn't do it." "Why?" Hua Qingwang looked at Ning Shu in confusion. Ning Shu reached out and patted Hua Qingwang's head. "Qingwang, it's because Imperial Mother is facing your Imperial Father. He is the most powerful person in the world. Everyone is a subject in front of him, including Imperial Mother and you. Imperial Mother has already saved your cousin. This can't be repeated. Qingwang, do you want Imperial Mother to give up on saving Qingyang and saving the puppy?" "No, Qingwang doesn't want anything to happen to cousin." Hua Qingwang shook his head. "But why did Imperial Father beat the puppy to death? It didn't know anything. He was jealous and warned her and the Xiao family." Chapter 236. Hua Qing was dissatisfied with her and with Xiao Qingyang becoming Hua Qing's study companion. Hua Qingwang felt terrible. He had never felt so terrible before. Ning Shu sighed and said, "Mother has taken care of the puppy's body. When you are better, bury it." Hua Qingwang stared at Ning Shu and asked word by word, "Imperial Father also has a little fox by his side. Imperial Father can raise a little fox, but he said that I lost my will to play around and killed a little dog. Why can Imperial Father do it, but I can't? Qingwang wants to know why." Ning Shu looked at this child. He was different from before. After experiencing pain, he should have come to his senses. Even though he had the noble identity of a prince, this nobility was like duckweed without roots. Ning Shu smiled faintly. "Why?" "Because your father is the emperor. He controls the fate of the world. He holds our fate in his hands. No one can provoke him. He has the absolute power to protect the things he loves. He can take away the most important things of others, but no one dares to say anything. Father is the emperor. He has the power to protect the things he loves." Hua Qingwang looked at Ning Shu in a daze. Ning Shu hugged Hua Qingwang and said faintly, "Qingwang, there is nothing absolute in this world. Everyone has to pay the price for their actions. Mother hopes that Qingwang can be happy, but do not desire the affection of an ordinary family from your father. Your father is the emperor. He controls our fate. Even our lives are in the hands of others, let alone feelings. Mother, what should Qingwang do to not feel so terrible?" Hua Qingwang shed tears and looked at Ning Shu. "I want to protect Mother. I want to protect the things that I cherish. I don't want what happened today to happen again. Mother, I feel terrible. I feel terrible." Ning Shu's heart ached. She used her handkerchief to wipe away the tears on Hua Qingwang's face and patted his back. "Qingwang, be happy. Your Imperial Father can't take away your happiness. Imperial Mother hopes that Qingwang will be happy. Imperial Mother will seek justice for what happened today. Mother." Hua Qingwang threw himself into Ning Shu's arms and wailed. Ning Shu, however, breathed a sigh of relief. Venting was better than holding it in. There were still tears on Hua Qingwang's face. Ning Shu wiped the tears off his face with a handkerchief. "Nyang Nyang, have some food." Qing Zhu's face was somewhat haggard. She had accompanied Ning Shu to keep watch for the entire night. Ning Shu took the bowl of porridge and said to Hua Qingwang, "Qingwang, eat something. You'll get better faster." Ning Shu fed Hua Qingwang spoonful after spoonful of porridge. Hua Qingwang asked Ning Shu, "Imperial Mother, has Imperial Father been here? Has Imperial Father come to see me?" "No." Ning Shu shook his head. Qinhuang, mother said not to have too many feelings and expectations for your imperial father. I just want imperial father to know that what he did before was wrong. He caused me a lot of harm. I am his son. I want to see imperial father feel a bit of guilt, said Qinhuang. Ning Shu had a smile on his face. Imperial mother's Qinhuang has grown up. However, even if some people hurt others, they don't feel it. Even if they feel that they hurt others, they still won't take it to heart. After Qinhuang finished a bowl of porridge, he lay down to rest. Ning Shu saw that he was still crying under the blankets. Ning Shu sighed in his heart. He casually ate a bit of food and kept watch by the bed. Nyang Nyang, Madam has handed over a token and wants to enter the palace to see the little prince, Qing Zhu whispered into Ning Shu's ear. Ning Shu waved his hand. Tell them not to hand over tokens to the palace for now. Don't let women enter the palace for a while. Qingyang will stay in the palace. Given Qinhuang's current situation, he should have a companion by his side. Tell mother not to worry. Ben Gong will protect Qingyang. Qing Zhu left with a worried expression on her face. After breakfast, Xiao Qingyang came over to keep watch, waiting for his little cousin to wake up. Ning Shu didn't want to see the concubines at all. He wasn't in the mood at all. The concubines sent over a lot of things. Ning Shu had Qing Zhu stuff them into the storeroom without even looking at them. At noon, Qing finally found out that his son was sick. He came over with a cold expression. Ning Shu felt his balls ache. If he didn't want to come, then so be it. Qing asked Ning Shu, why didn't you tell Zhen that Qinhuang was sick? If the empress's father hadn't asked about the little prince's health during the morning court session, he wouldn't have known that Qinhuang was sick. Qing instantly felt that his dignity was being challenged. He was the master of the imperial palace. Someone else actually knew what was happening at home before he did. Everyone outside knew what was happening in the imperial palace. What did they think the imperial palace was? When Ning Shu heard Qing's words, he became a Spartan. He had never seen such a shameless person. He scared his son until he fell ill, and now he was questioning him. Ning Shu was roaring in his heart, but on the surface, he looked tired and anxious to explain. Qinhuang got sick late at night, so Qinxie didn't disturb your majesty. You should have sent someone to tell Zhen in the morning. When he was questioned by his father-in-law, Qing was almost dumbfounded. This made Qing very unhappy. Ning Shu said indifferently, Qinxie didn't sleep all night. My mind was really muddled. I forgot to send someone to tell your majesty. It was Qinxie's fault. Qing was speechless for a moment. He sat by the bed and looked at the sleeping Qinhuang. He asked, how is he now? Much better, Ning Shu said. Qing's expression was not good. He said coldly, as my child, he actually got sick over such a small matter. How can he be worthy of being my son? Ning Shu, fuck your mother, fuck, you speak as if your son wasn't human. He wasn't made of flesh and blood and wouldn't be sad. In the end, he just didn't care. If the child on the bed was his and the little fox's child, he would probably be roaring and chopping off the imperial physician's head. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. She said indifferently, Qinxie will take good care of Qinhuang. Qing dilly-dallied for a while before leaving. It didn't even take the time to drink a cup of tea. He probably went back to find the little fox. He was afraid that the little fox would be angry. With Ning Shu accompanying him day and night and Xiao Qingyang watching over him, Qinhuang's illness took more than a month to recover. After enduring for a month, Ning Shu felt that he had lost weight. Qing only came once. He didn't come at all other times. He felt very cold. He was so cold to his own child. Qinhuang didn't ask if his father came to see him again. Ning Shu felt that Qinhuang had changed a lot. He was no longer as lively and playful as before. Now, Ning Shu didn't have to say anything. He would study on his own. Ning Shu often counseled Chen Wang. In the past, he tried to think of ways to get Chen Wang to study. Now, he wanted Chen Wang to pay attention to the balance between work and rest. Being a mother was so hard. Chapter 237. Ning Shu's mind had been focused on Hua Qingwang during this time, so he rarely asked about the affairs of the imperial harem. He asked Qin Zhu, what happened recently? Qin Zhu thought for a moment and said, actually, it's nothing much. It's just that the emperor's pets like to go to the palaces of the imperial concubines and break things, which annoys the imperial concubines. They originally wanted to ask the imperial concubines for justice, but this servant pushed them away. The imperial concubines went to the emperor and were scolded by the emperor. Wasn't this asking for a rebuff? With Hua Qing's love for the little fox, even if the imperial palace was burned down, it would be fine. These imperial concubines were also stupid. They simply set up rat traps in the palace like she did. If they were caught, they deserved it. It wasn't that these imperial concubines didn't think of it, but they didn't dare to. Before hitting a dog, one had to look at its master. This fox's master was the emperor, so they could only swallow it. It was quite hard to get to this point, but it didn't make sense for them to live so comfortably. Hua Qing hadn't visited the imperial concubines in a long time. These imperial concubines were bored and wanted to find something to do to pass the time. Noble consort Xian came to invite Ning Shu to watch a play. Ning Shu wasn't interested in the play. But thinking of the two little radishes, he agreed to go see the play tomorrow. Noble consort Xian told Ning Shu about the play. After hesitating, Ning Shu asked, Imperial concubine, is there something wrong with the emperor's body? Why is he unwilling to let the imperial concubines in the imperial harem serve him? Now, it had developed to the point where even the 15th day of the month was in the imperial concubine's palace. This made the imperial concubines in the imperial harem feel distressed. There's something wrong with his body? You think there's something wrong with the emperor's body? Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and asked. Noble consort Xian's face immediately turned red. She remembered the last time the emperor slept with her. He was very fierce and there was no problem at all. Then why is the emperor unwilling to enter the imperial harem? Noble consort Xian frowned and asked, could it be that the emperor is hiding a woman, a vixen? Ning Shu, it really is a vixen. The next day, Ning Shu took her two children, Hua Qingwang and Xiao Qingyang, with a long line of palace maids following behind them, to the stage. When they arrived, there were already many concubines waiting. Ning Shu immediately bowed. Ning Shu held Hua Qingwang's hand and said with a smile, sit down. Nyang Nyang, you should act. Imperial concubine Xian handed the list of tricks to Ning Shu. Ning Shu took it and smiled at Hua Qingwang. Qingwang, what do you like? Hua Qingwang looked at it and finally chose a drama about King Wu defeating King Zhou. It was a story about overthrowing the tyrannical and muddle-headed King Zhou. Ning Shu raised her eyebrows and glanced at Hua Qingwang. She must be thinking too much. How could a little radish like Hua Qingwang have this kind of awareness now? Ning Shu casually chose a play and gave it to Imperial concubine Xian. Then, the concubines all chose the plays they liked. As Ning Shu listened to the babbling and singing, her mind began to race. She thought about things and occasionally looked at Hua Qingwang, who was watching the play with great interest. While the concubines were watching happily, Hua Qing was reviewing memorials in the imperial study. The little fox sat on the table, bored. She used her claws to poke at the memorials on the table. Listening to the gongs and drums outside, it was very lively. She didn't want to stay in this boring study. Hua Qing put down the cinnabar pen and looked at the little fox's dispirited appearance. He patted her head and said, do you want to go and take a look? The little fox quickly nodded and looked at Huaqing with great desire. She kept blinking her eyes and acting cute, hoping that Huaqing would let her go. Isn't it just watching a play? Zhen will take you there. Huaqing's body heated up under the little fox's gaze. Huaqing quickly picked up the little fox, afraid that he would lose control under such a gaze. Now, the other party's gaze was enough to make him panic. It was simply torture. Huaqing's eyes were deep. He looked at the little fox in his arms who was looking around. Was there a way to turn the little fox into a human? The emperor has arrived. The eunuch's shrill voice sounded. No one thought that Huaqing would suddenly come. The concubines' faces were filled with extreme joy. Huaqing's arrival caused a commotion. The concubines quickly tidied up their clothes and adjusted the hairpin in their hair. In short, they wanted to be in their best state to welcome Huaqing. Ning Shu was very curious why Huaqing had suddenly come to the back palace. But then she saw the little golden fox in Huaqing's arms and her heart suddenly had a bad feeling. She really didn't want to be in the same frame as the female lead. Whenever the female lead appeared, something would happen. Qinxie pays respects to the emperor. Ning Shu bowed to Huaqing. Qinxie pays respects to the emperor. The concubines also bowed. Qinxie pays respects to Fu Wang. Hua Qinhuang obediently bowed to Huaqing. Huaqing looked Hua Qinhuang up and down and said, even if your body is better, don't run around. Yes, Qinxie will remember. Hua Qinhuang was very obedient. He glanced at the little fox in Huaqing's arms, bit his lip, and finally looked away. The little fox was held in Huaqing's arms. Seeing these concubines flirting with each other, it felt very uncomfortable. Thinking that these people were all Huaqing's women, the little fox cursed Huaqing in its heart. It regretted coming to watch the show. The little fox's eyes widened. It bared its teeth and whimpered at these concubines. Huaqing coldly grunted. He sat in a chair and said indifferently, you guys continue to watch the show. Don't mind Zhen. Ning Shu sat next to Huaqing. The little fox immediately bared its teeth at Ning Shu. Its eyes were filled with unfriendliness and disdain. Ning Shu looked at her indifferently. Fuck, one day I'll skin you and make you into a scarf. The little fox's hair stood on end under Ning Shu's gaze. She was indeed a vicious woman. On the surface, she appeared gentle and considerate, but she was a hypocrite. She really pitied Huaqing. These concubines in the harem were all here for glory and wealth. Which one of them truly loved Huaqing? The stage was singing, but all the concubines' attention was on Huaqing. Huaqing didn't say anything. He stroked the little fox's golden fur. He didn't want to pay attention to anyone, but he couldn't resist the concubine's enthusiasm. He desperately tried to find a topic to talk about. Your Majesty, this fox is really beautiful. A concubine wearing a pink palace dress said sweetly to Huaqing. Her smile was like a flower. Ning Shu looked at her. She was just a beauty. She was basically not favored. She probably had to muster up her courage to take a gamble. Humph, what an ugly smile. The little fox was annoyed. It gently scratched Huaqing's palm with its claws. Don't look, don't look. What's so good about this woman? This concubine has many furs, but none of them are as beautiful as this one. Beauty Lin continued. Ning Shu wanted to cover his face. He sighed in his heart. He had flattered the wrong horse. Chapter 238. This beauty wanted to praise the little fox's beauty, but she used the fur in her closet as a comparison. Not all the concubines in the harem were scheming, and there were some who were naive and sweet. When the little fox heard the word fur, all the fur on its body stood up and it shrieked at the beauty. Huaqing looked coldly at Beauty Lin and comforted the little fox. He said gently, "It's fine. With me here, no one will dare to do anything to you. The concubines were stunned when they saw Hua Qing's gentle appearance. They had never seen the emperor so gentle. It could melt their hearts, but this gentleness was directed at a beast. Envy, jealousy, and hatred were scratching their hearts and lungs. With Hua Qing's assurance, the little fox raised its chin proudly. It still felt angry, so it jumped down from Hua Qing's body and onto Beauty Lin. It reached out its claws and messed up her hair. Beauty Lin screamed. Beauty Lin screamed. She was in a sorry state. The little fox was very pleased. Look, all of them were pretending to be nice all the time. Now they were all exposed. Humph, bad woman. She even wanted to skin it. She was simply vicious. Don't think that she didn't know what this woman was thinking. The little fox raised its claws and scratched at Beauty Lin's face. Immediately, several bloody wounds appeared on Beauty Lin's face. Beauty Lin fell to the ground in pain. She covered her face with her hands. Blood flowed through the gaps between her fingers. My face, Ning Shu stood up and wanted to call for an imperial physician, but Hua Qing spoke first. Beauty Lin has been disrespectful in front of the palace. She will be demoted to Yeting. This was only a beauty, so Hua Qing didn't care at all. If it was the empress or other concubines with strong family backgrounds, he would definitely not do this. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. First, it was for her. He wanted her to be at ease and know that no one in the palace could hurt her. Second, it was to warn these women that this fox was his and he wouldn't let these concubines hurt her. The little fox raised its head and walked proudly towards Hua Qing. She was enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Don't think that she didn't know this beauty had a bad temper in private. She once saw this beauty scolding and beating a palace maid just because she did something wrong. Being banished to the cold palace could be considered retribution. The little fox jumped into Hua Qing's arms. Hua Qing tapped the tip of her pink nose and said, "You little thing." His affection for her was obvious. Ning Shu was speechless. Hua Qing was willing to do anything to make the beauty smile. Looking at the smug look on the little fox's face, he was really a fox exploiting the tiger's might to the fullest. Her face was ruined and she was banished to the cold palace. Beauty Lin was stunned on the spot. It wasn't until a guard came to take her off that she reacted. She screamed in horror, Your Majesty, this concubine is innocent. This concubine was wrong. Your Majesty, please forgive this concubine." Beauty Lin's clothes were taken off, and her face was covered in blood. She looked particularly miserable. Everyone was on tenterhooks. They weren't happy because there was one less person to compete with. Instead, they felt a sense of sadness. To end up like this because of an animal was simply ridiculous. Ugh, ugh. Noble consort Xian, who was sitting below Ning Shu, covered her mouth and vomited when she saw the bloody Beauty Lin being dragged away. Noble consort Xian wanted to hold it in, but she vomited even more violently. Ning Shu's eyes flashed when he saw noble consort Xian like this. He hurriedly said to Qing Zhu, "Quickly call the imperial physician over. The noble consort isn't feeling well." Noble consort Xian looked like she was pregnant. "Find another imperial physician to take a look at Beauty Lin," Ning Shu said quietly. It wasn't a big deal. Ning Shu was willing to help. Qing Zhu nodded and left. Everyone looked at noble consort Xian with envy. Hua Qing seemed to have guessed it too. He frowned and subconsciously hugged the little fox in his arms. The imperial physician hurried over. Before he could bow, Ning Shu said, "No need for formalities. Take a look at the noble consort's body first." "Yes." The imperial physician hurriedly took noble consort Xian's pulse. Hua Qing's face darkened. He was clearly unhappy with Ning Shu's actions. Hua Qing really regretted it now. He had impulsively taken advantage of noble consort Xian. If he hadn't been so tempted by he wouldn't have taken advantage of a consort. Congratulations, Your Majesty. Congratulations, noble consort Xian. You're almost 2 months pregnant. The imperial physician withdrew his hand and said with a smile. Hua Qing's heart tightened. He didn't say anything. Ning Shu smiled at the surprised noble consort Xian and said, "How come you didn't realize you were pregnant?" "Your Majesty, my period was irregular. I didn't mind. I didn't think I would be pregnant." Noble consort Xian's eyes were watery. She hadn't been pregnant since she entered the palace. This sudden surprise almost made her faint. This should be the only time Hua Qing had taken advantage of a consort recently. She didn't think he would be so lucky. "Since you know, you should take good care of yourself and give Chengwang a little brother," Ning Shu said with concern. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for your concern." Noble consort Xian touched her belly with a loving expression. She then said to Hua Qing, "Your Majesty, I will take good care of myself and give birth to a child." "Congratulations, Your Majesty." "Congratulations, Your Majesty." All the consorts suppressed their jealousy and congratulated noble consort Xian. Noble consort Xian was so happy that she almost cried. There was a joyous atmosphere all around. However, when little Fox found out that noble consort Xian was pregnant, her entire person, no, her entire fox, was stunned. Her heart was pounding. She was filled with anger. When she saw the smile on the Empress' face, she thought bitterly, what a hypocrite. Your husband is pregnant with another woman and you're so happy. You want to kill someone, but you're still pretending to be smiling. What a hypocritical woman. It was simply disgusting. Little Fox was very sad. The Empress had Hua Chengwang before she met Hua Qing. But now, Hua Qing doted on her while he was pregnant with another woman. Little Fox felt betrayed. Her heart was very small and could only fit one man. But she also wanted that man to only have her in his heart. Hua Qing was the emperor and she was a pet. She took him seriously just because he teased her. Hua Qing panicked when he saw the little fox crying. Little Fox jumped out of Hua Qing's arms and looked at noble consort Xian, who was smiling like a flower. She was so sad, but the other party was so happy. Little Fox pounced at noble consort Xian and noble consort Xian's stomach was hit by Little Fox. Hua Qing frowned and looked at Little Fox. Little Fox looked at Hua Qing stubbornly. Seeing the shock and disapproval in Hua Qing's eyes, Little Fox's heart ached. She turned and ran away. They were all liars. She shouldn't have trusted men, Little Fox thought angrily. Hua Qing wanted to chase after Little Fox, but the situation was so chaotic that he couldn't just leave. Chapter 239. Imperial concubine Xian, who was hit in the stomach, held her stomach and screamed. It happened so fast that no one could react. Only when they heard Imperial concubine Xian's painful moan did they see that Imperial concubine Xian's dress was red. "Quick, doctor, check on the Imperial concubine and try to hold the baby," Ning Shu quickly said to the doctor. Imperial concubine Xian was sitting on a chair. Her dress was stained with blood. Her face was very pale and she was crying. She reached out her hand to Hua Qing. Hua Qing hesitated and held Imperial concubine Xian's hand. Seeing that Imperial concubine Xian was very weak, Hua Qing said in despair, "Emperor, please save our child." Hua Qing didn't say anything. He just nodded. Imperial concubine Xian's face was getting paler. Even with the doctor's acupuncture, the bleeding couldn't stop. Ning Shu watched from the side and shook his head. Imperial concubine Xian couldn't keep the baby. Emperor, Imperial concubine Xian's body was very weak. She couldn't get pregnant. The baby was unstable and was hit hard. I am useless. Imperial concubine Xian has had a miscarriage. The doctor knelt on the ground and kowtowed. Imperial concubine Xian endured the pain and fainted. She didn't know anything. Hua Qing's face flashed with a strange joy, but it quickly disappeared. He coldly said to the doctor, "Do your best to nurse Imperial concubine Xian's body back to health. No matter what medicine you use it. You must nurse Imperial concubine Xian's body back to health." "I will remember." The doctor saw that Hua Qing didn't blame him and wiped away his cold sweat. "Emperor, it is windy in the garden. Take Imperial concubine Xian back to her palace," Ning Shu said to Hua Qing. Hua Qing's face was a bit strange. He hesitated a bit before carrying Imperial concubine Xian to her palace. Ning Shu saw Hua Qing's hesitant face and despised him. He was happy to hug an animal, but when he was asked to hug his woman, he acted like he was a germaphobe. "Chen Wang, go back first." Ning Shu asked Qing Zhu to take the two children back. Hua Qingwang grabbed Ning Shu's clothes. Ning Shu asked, "What is it?" "Mother, be careful." Hua Qingwang quietly said to Ning Shu, "Father smiled just now." Ning Shu was slightly stunned and asked, "When?" Her attention was all on Imperial concubine Xian, so she didn't notice Hua Qing's expression. It was when the imperial physician said that imperial consort Nyang's child couldn't be saved that this son saw the corners of imperial father's mouth curl up. Hua Qingwang frowned. "Mother, you have to believe me. I really saw it. Imperial mother believes in you." Ning Shu patted Hua Qingwang's head. "Quickly go back with Qing Zhu." Ning Shu caught up with Hua Qing and glanced at Hua Qing's side profile. His side profile was very cold, which made his facial features even more deep and charming. However, Ning Shu felt a chill in his heart. He actually smiled when his woman had a miscarriage. Soon, they arrived at Imperial concubine Xian's bedroom. Hua Qing placed the unconscious Imperial concubine Xian on the bed and then said to the Imperial physician, "Treat Imperial concubine Xian well." Hua Qing stood by the bed, but his eyes kept looking outside the hall. Ning Shu said, "Empress, Zhen still has matters to attend to. You stay here with Imperial concubine Xian. If there is anything, send someone to report to Zhen." Ning Shu didn't even want to look at Hua Qing. She lowered her head and said, "Emperor, Imperial concubine Xian's miscarriage wasn't an accident. She was hit in the stomach by a little fox. Qinxia feels that an explanation should be given to Imperial concubine Xian. The little fox harmed the imperial heir and shouldn't be let off so easily." The other concubines in the hall looked at each other and didn't speak. They all looked at Hua Qing. Hua Qing's face twitched. He waved his sleeve and said, "We'll talk about this later." "Emperor." Ning Shu raised her head and looked at Hua Qing. "Emperor, Imperial concubine Xian's stomach is also your child. That fox killed your child. Why don't you seek justice for Imperial concubine Xian and the child? It's just an animal. Just beat it to death." "Shut up." Hua Qing couldn't help but interrupt Ning Shu's words. Then he realized that he had lost control of his emotions. He lowered his voice and said, "Zhen will compensate the Empress for this matter. As for the little fox, it's just an animal that doesn't know anything. Can Zhen's child come back if I beat it to death? Wouldn't Zhen be sad to lose the child? Compensate Imperial concubine Xian," but the culprit was completely fine. He was so cold. Even though Ning Shu had experienced several worlds, she couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. And Hua Qing actually wanted this child to disappear so that it wouldn't affect his relationship with the little fox. If he wasn't cold and heartless to other women, it seemed that he couldn't show his affection for the female lead. Ning Shu suppressed the anger in her heart and said faintly, "Qinxia understands. Take care, Emperor." Hua Qing turned and left. His back was a bit embarrassed. Empress, are we just going to let it go like this? Concubine Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu waved her hand. You can go back. If you have nothing to do, stay in your palace and don't wander around. Yes. The concubines retreated, but everyone's expression was very gloomy. If a concubine had a miscarriage before, of course, they would gloat. But now, everyone's heart was weighed down by a stone, and it was heavy with uneasiness. Basin after basin of bloody water was carried out. After a long time, the imperial physician came out of the side hall. Ning Shu asked, "How is imperial concubine Xian?" The imperial physician shook his head. Imperial concubine Xian's body is severely damaged. It will be difficult for her to get pregnant in the future. Ning Shu sighed. The palace was really a gloomy place. Ning Shu said, "Try to nurse her back to health. No matter what medicine is used, it will do. Even His Majesty said so." The imperial physician nodded. Ning Shu walked into the bedchamber. There was a strong smell of blood inside. Imperial concubine Xian was lying on the bed with her hair disheveled. Her face was as white as paper, and her complexion was very poor. Her exposed shoulders looked very thin, making people feel pity for her. Ning Shu sat by the bed and took a handkerchief to wipe the cold sweat on imperial concubine Xian's forehead. The little fox was lucky to have Hua Qing's lifelong love. But what about the women in the harem? How cruel was he to so many women in the harem? If he didn't like her, then he shouldn't have chosen so many women to enter the palace. Such a beautiful woman might be happier if she married someone else. Empress, let me do it. Imperial concubine Xian's maid, Ning Shu, said. Ning Shu nodded and gave the handkerchief to Imperial concubine Xian's personal maid. Empress, the smell of blood in this hall is very strong. Please move. The maid, Ning Shu, said. The maid's eyes were red as she endured the pain. Ning Shu said indifferently, "It's fine. I will wait here for Imperial concubine Xian to wake up." Qing Zhu sent the two children back and then came over. She stood beside Ning Shu and waited for Imperial concubine Xian to wake up. Qing Zhu, pour me a glass of water. Ning Shu felt very thirsty. Imperial concubine Xian woke up at night. When she saw Ning Shu by her bedside, she was stunned for a moment. Then she hurriedly touched her stomach and cried, "My child, my child, my child." Her voice was like a blood-sobbing cuckoo, sorrowful and desperate. Chapter 240. Lady Xian was devastated. When her emotions stabilized, Ning Shu wanted to comfort her. But when the words came out of his mouth, he didn't know what to say. Could it be that she would have a child in the future? First of all, Lady Xian's body was injured, so it would be difficult for her to get pregnant. Secondly, Hua Qing had to keep his chastity for the little fox. He didn't even want to enter the harem. Lady Xian's body was very weak. After a heart-wrenching cry, her body trembled. Her forehead was covered in cold sweat, and her hair was wet. How did the emperor deal with that fox? My child is gone. I just learned of his existence, and he's gone. Lady Xian hammered her chest with her hand, tears streaming down her face. This was the plane's cannon fodder. They decorated the lives of the protagonists, but they were also flesh and blood. They could feel pain and sadness. Ning Shu sighed and said, "The body is the foundation. Without a good body, how can you take revenge?" Lady Xian looked at Ning Shu and sneered. She said sarcastically and sadly, "You must be very happy right now." Why would I be happy? Something like this is not something to be happy about. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and said in surprise. Lady Xian smiled sadly. "I don't have a child now. Your child is no longer a threat. Your Highness, I'm tired. I want to rest. Ning Shu said indifferently, let's not talk about whether the child in your belly is a boy or a girl. Even if it's born, it won't be a threat to me. I'm the Empress and my child is the eldest son. As long as I don't make any mistakes and my child doesn't make any big mistakes, my child will be the first in line to the throne. Besides, I still have the marshal's mansion behind me. Xiao Xiao had such a good card in her hand, yet she ended up in the end. It was only love and jealousy that made her lose her mind. If Xiao Xiao had been more rational and ruthless, she wouldn't have ended up like this. If a woman wasn't ruthless, her status wouldn't be stable. Xiao Xiao could only blame herself for falling in love with an emperor. Not everyone was a little fox who could turn a cold and hard emperor into a soft and gentle one. Imperial concubine Xian was stunned by Ning Shu's straightforward words. Her body trembled even more violently, and she cried silently. It was even more heartbreaking than before. Her face was filled with despair, indifference, and sadness. Ning Shu said, the emperor will give the Grand Preceptor's mansion an explanation. He will compensate you. Noble consort Xian was the granddaughter of the Grand Preceptor, who had assisted 2 generations of emperors. Although she had retired, she was still very influential in the imperial court. Compensation. My child is gone. Can you return my child and let my child come back to life? I've been waiting for this child for countless years, but I still haven't felt his existence. Seeing that the imperial consort was crying, Ning Shu questioned. Please forgive me, Your Highness. My imperial consort is too sad. She didn't mean to offend Your Highness, Imperial consort Xian's personal maid explained hurriedly. Ning Shu waved his hand and didn't care. The personal maid said to Imperial consort Xian, Your Highness, before you woke up, the Empress wanted to seek justice for you in front of the Emperor. She wanted to kill the little fox, but the Emperor didn't agree. Imperial consort Xian was stunned for a moment, and then she said, Thank you, Your Highness. You and I are both women. I can understand your pain, Ning Shu said. Have a good rest. Imperial consort Xian was helped to lie down by the maid. At this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the palace garden. Ning Shu and Qing Zhu said, Go out and see what happened. Yes. Qing Zhu went out for a while and then came back in. She glanced at Imperial consort Xian on the bed without saying anything. Imperial consort Xian said in a hoarse voice, Tell me, what happened? I am just a person who is waiting to die. What can't I accept? Your Highness, Qing Zhu said to Ning Shu, there are Imperial guards outside. Imperial guards? Why are they walking in the palace so late at night? Ning Shu frowned. Qing Zhu glanced at Imperial consort Xian and said, I heard that the little fox disappeared in the afternoon. They haven't found her yet. The Emperor is worried, so he sent people to look for her. Ha! Ning Shu sneered. Imperial consort Xian clutched the quilt so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Ning Shu really thought that Huaqin was as cold as a beast. His woman had a miscarriage, but he still cared about the little fox who made a mistake. Imperial consort Xian, take care of yourself. There will be a good show to watch in the future. If you want to take revenge, you have to take care of yourself, Ning Shu said to Imperial consort Xian. Even if you are sad to death now, no one will care. Ning Shu stood up and patted Imperial consort Xian's cold hands. Get up. You will see what you want to see. Let's do it together. Farewell, Your Highness. This concubine will remember what Your Highness the Empress said today. Imperial consort Xian looked at Ning Shu with a determined look. There was a burning light in her eyes, a flame of hatred. Ning Shu turned and walked out of Imperial consort Xian's palace. Walking in the Imperial garden, he saw Imperial guards holding lanterns and shuttling between the fake mountains and trees. Obviously, they were looking for the little fox. Ning Shu curled his lips. Since they loved each other so much, he would let them be together in the future. Your Highness, does the little fox know some sorcery? Why is the emperor like this? Qing Zhu felt strange. Sorcery? Perhaps. Ning Shu said ambiguously. When Ning Shu returned to her palace, Hua Qingwang was still waiting for her. Ning Shu felt as if a fire had been lit in her heart. She felt warm. She didn't treat this child as her own. She just wanted him to stop running around and causing trouble with the little fox. However, this child returned her sincere feelings. Qingwang, it's so late. Why aren't you sleeping? Ning Shu asked the two children. Go to sleep. Seeing that his mother had returned, Hua Qingwang let out a sigh of relief. He said, there is always a commotion outside. I can't sleep. If he was waiting, then he was waiting. Why did he have to find an excuse? Ning Shu rubbed Hua Qingwang's forehead. Mother, is Imperial Consort Xian alright? Hua Qingwang asked. Does Qingwang not have a little brother or sister? Ning Shu nodded. Hua Qingwang was a bit disappointed. He asked Ning Shu, I feel that Imperial Father has changed. He has changed so much that I almost can't recognize him. Love can change people. Ning Shu drank a mouthful of water. It's late. Go to sleep. Love? Hua Qingwang looked at Ning Shu in confusion. Mother, what are you talking about? What love? Your Imperial Father is like a young boy who has fallen in love. Ning Shu said with a smile. He had done something unbelievable for the person he liked. Hua Qingwang continued to ask, Imperial Father's love with who? Go to sleep. Mother is tired. Ning Shu didn't want to talk about this with Hua Qingwang. Chapter 241. Little Fox was caught by the guards. When she was brought to Hua Qing, her fur was covered in grass and dust. When she saw Hua Qing, tears fell from her eyes. Hua Qing's heart ached. He quickly patted the dust off Little Fox and hugged her. He said in a trembling voice, You little thing, are you trying to scare me to death? Little Fox couldn't escape from Hua Qing's embrace. However, she was angry and didn't make a sound. Liar, they were all liars. She had to be crazy to believe an emperor. He had 72 concubines in his harem. What was she? Little Fox felt very uncomfortable. You little thing, how dare you get angry at me and run away after causing trouble? Imperial concubine Xian had a miscarriage because of you. Hua Qing said helplessly with a frown. He was clearly troubled by this matter. He regretted sleeping with Imperial concubine Xian and getting her pregnant. Hua Qing felt guilty as if he had betrayed Little Fox. Little Fox's body stiffened when she heard that she had a miscarriage. She had a miscarriage because she couldn't stand the smug look on the pregnant Imperial concubine's face. She had a miscarriage because she was too weak. Women in ancient times were very delicate and didn't step out of the house. Little Fox thought so, but she was still very afraid. She had caused the death of an unborn life. Little Fox was still very afraid. She quickly looked at Hua Qing, thinking that he was teasing her. Hua Qing sighed and stroked Little Fox's fur. He said, It's true. She really had a miscarriage. Her pregnancy was unstable and she miscarried after you bumped into her. However, her body was weak to begin with. Don't blame yourself too much. Little Fox began to cry again. How could this be? Hua Qing quickly wiped her tears and said, This is my fault. I shouldn't have slept with her and gotten her pregnant. I know you are angry. I will take care of this matter. You don't have to worry. Little Fox was convinced. Who was Hua Qing? He was the emperor, the most powerful person in the world. Imperial concubine Xian was just a woman. Little Fox felt guilty because of her mistake. She immediately stuck out her tongue and licked Hua Qing's finger. She looked at Hua Qing with sincere and cute eyes. You can't run around in the future. If you disappear like this again, we will tie you to my side and not allow you to take a step away from me. Hua Qing said sternly. Although Hua Qing's words were terrifying, the little fox's heart was filled with sweetness. She stuck out her tongue and licked Hua Qing's lips. Hua Qing's eyes deepened as he stared at the little fox's tongue. In the end, he looked away and said, "But this matter must be explained to the imperial consort. Otherwise, the empress and the imperial consort will not let this matter rest." The little fox's eyes widened when she heard that. It wasn't that hypocritical empress who had miscarried. Why would she need an explanation? These women just couldn't stand her and wanted to kill her. Humph, they look incomparably beautiful on the outside, but they are all beautiful snakes. Hua Qing will be stung to death by these beautiful scorpions sooner or later. Who asked you to be lecherous? Who asked you to be a stud? Who asked you to have so many women in your harem? The little fox nodded. She wouldn't be angry. Looking at Hua Qing's tired appearance, the little fox's heart softened. This man protected her, but he also had moments when he was weak. In front of her, he seemed to have all his defenses down and revealed his softest inner self. The little fox stuck out her pink tongue and licked Hua Qing's cheeks to comfort him. Hua Qing doted on her, so she should treat him well. All right, you little thing. He hugged the little fox and didn't let her lick his face anymore. He endured it with great difficulty, but it seemed that the little fox didn't notice at all. It seemed like she especially liked this kind of intimate action. It was really painful and happy. The next morning, Hua Qing issued an edict to promote Imperial Consort Xian's position. Imperial Consort Xian was promoted from Imperial Consort Xian to Imperial Consort Xian. This position was close to that of the Empress. She was the number one position after the Empress. Not only was her position promoted, but she was also rewarded with many rare treasures and precious nourishing holy items. It was all done before the court. When Ning Shu heard this news, he thought that Hua Qing had already compensated the imperial tutor's residents in order to shut their mouths. The imperial tutor's residents couldn't say anything. After Ning Shu had breakfast, he went to see Imperial Consort Xian. No, it was Imperial Consort Xian now. Walking into the palace, Ning Shu saw palace maids tidying up the things that Hua Qing had sent over. In the bedroom, Imperial Consort Xian was sitting on the bed and drinking medicine. Imperial Consort Xian's expression was indifferent. She didn't feel anything about these rare treasures. She also didn't look happy about being promoted to Imperial Consort. When she saw Ning Shu come, she bowed respectfully to Ning Shu. This concubine greets the Empress. At least your position was promoted. Ning Shu said. Imperial Consort Xian didn't say anything and drank the medicine in one breath. She looked at Ning Shu and asked, Empress, can this concubine trust you? Of course you can. Ning Shu nodded. Imperial Consort Xian then shook her head. You and the Emperor are the original husband and wife. Although this concubine has a high position, I am still just a concubine. Husband and wife. Imperial Consort, do you think that this concubine and the Emperor are a loving couple? Ning Shu said indifferently. This concubine is no different from you. In the Emperor's heart, there is no difference. In the Emperor's heart, you are just a wooden and inflexible concubine. She wasn't as lively and cute as the little fox. Hua Qing didn't have any feelings for the original owner of the body. Hua Qing and Xiao Xiao were together because of benefits. In the end, they still fell apart because of benefits. This concubine doesn't understand what the Empress means. Imperial Consort Xian, Ning Shu asked. Imperial Consort Xian probably didn't know that the current Hua Qing liked a beast that had yet to transform into a human. After seeing Imperial Consort Xian, Ning Shu went back. Some things had to be done slowly. The little fox was so arrogant because Wuxia pampered it. Without Wuxia, the little fox was just a beast that couldn't even control its own fate. If the person it met at the hunting grounds wasn't Wuxia, but someone else, it would have been shot to death and turned into a woman's fur. Wuxia was the little fox's only reliance. It was a huge golden finger. Ningxu walked to the door. After thinking for a while, she turned to look at Wuxia. She pushed the door open and walked in. She saw that the little fox that was supposed to be in the imperial study was actually with Wuxia. The little fox stood on a chair and looked at Wuxia. Wuxia pursed his lips tightly and stared at the little fox. When Ningxu saw this scene, she was shocked. Could it be that Wuxia was still playing with the little fox? Mother. Seeing Ningxu walk in, Wuxia quickly walked in front of Ningxu. Ningxu glanced at the little fox and asked Wuxia, "Qingwang, what are you doing?" "This son is practicing calligraphy," Wuxia said. When the little fox saw that the two of them were talking and ignoring her, she suddenly felt very awkward. Humph, if she had known, she wouldn't have come. Chapter 242. The little fox originally didn't want to come to the Empress' place. She didn't like the hypocritical Empress at all. She looked dignified and virtuous, but she was a black-hearted woman. Otherwise, why would she be the only one in the harem with children? Before the little fox transmigrated, she had read many novels and felt that the Empress must have given the other women something to prevent them from getting pregnant. The little fox felt quite guilty. After all, she quite liked Wuxia, the fair and tender little boy. She felt like she was teasing a miniature version of Wuxia. He was very cute. Today, she had come to apologize to Wuxia, but he didn't seem to care about her. Then, the Empress came again. The little fox felt uncomfortable. Wuxia used to like her a lot, but now he was ignoring her. The little fox jumped off the table and ran away. Ningxu raised his eyebrows and asked, "The little fox came to play with you?" "Auntie, this little fox is amazing. She can actually write." Xiao Qingyang handed the imperial edict to Ningxu. Ningxu took a look and saw the words, "I'm sorry," written in a crooked claw. It was extremely ugly. She is quite smart. If she wasn't, Imperial Father wouldn't have doted on her so much. Ningxu threw the paper away and said without much care. Wuxia raised his head and looked at Ningxu. "Imperial Mother, why does Imperial Father like a fox and not this son? This son hates foxes. She killed this son's dog. This son is Imperial Father's son. Why doesn't Imperial Father like this son?" Ningxu suddenly didn't know how to answer Wuxia. Was he supposed to tell him that he wasn't the child of Imperial Father's beloved woman, so of course he didn't like him? That would probably make his little heart bleed. Ningxu crouched down and put his hand on Wuxia's shoulder. He looked into Wuxia's dark eyes and said seriously, "Qingwang, Imperial Mother said that your Imperial Father is the Emperor. Don't crave the feelings of an emperor. Qingyang, go to the kitchen and bring some snacks over." Ningxu sent Xiao Qingyang away. Xiao Qingyang immediately went to look for food. Ningxu and Wuxia sat in their chairs. Ningxu asked Wuxia, "Qingyang, what do you think is the most important thing for an emperor?" "I don't know." Wuxia looked at Ningxu with sparkling eyes. Ningxu smiled and asked, "Qingyang, what do you think an emperor should be like?" 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. Call the wind and summon the rain. Emperors should be worshipped by all, Wuxia said. Ningxu pinched Wuxia's face and said, "That's right. The emperor should be worshipped by the people. The most important thing for an emperor is responsibility. The people support the entire royal family, and the emperor's responsibility is to make the people in the world live better." Wuxia nodded as if he understood. Ning Shu knew Hua Qingwang didn't understand these things, so he asked Hua Qingwang, "Does Qingwang want to be king? An emperor worshipped by all the people?" "Yes, I want to be king. I want to replace my father as the emperor. I want to protect my mother and the things I care about." Hua Qingwang clenched his fists, and his face was red. "As an emperor, you can't like or care about things too much. Your father likes something too much, so much so that he has lost his basic vigilance and calmness." Ning Shu looked at Hua Qingwang and asked, "What do you think your father is like now?" Hua Qingwang bit his lip and whispered, "He's a bit like an incapable emperor." Ning Shu nodded and changed the subject. "In the future, put a rat trap in the house. Little Fox often runs around, so she might have heard what we said." Ning Shu poked Hua Qingwang's head. "Think of a way yourself. Torture the little fox so that she can't complain to your imperial father. Let her suffer in silence. Qingwang, think of a way to avenge the little dog." "I will remember." Hua Qingwang nodded, and his eyes were heavy. At night, Hua Qing went to Imperial concubine Xian's palace. This time, little fox wasn't angry. She obediently waited in the royal study for Hua Qing to come back. Little fox knew that Imperial concubine Xian's body couldn't serve her, so she generously let Hua Qing go. Speaking of which, Imperial concubine Xian was now Imperial concubine Xian. Little Fox suspected that Imperial concubine Xian knew that she couldn't keep her child, so she blamed it on her. Little Fox only lightly bumped into Imperial concubine Xian, and she had a miscarriage. The women in the harem were really vicious. Hua Qing went to Imperial concubine Xian's palace and sat for a while before leaving. Before he left, he said a few words of concern to Imperial concubine Xian. Imperial concubine Xian's face was cold from beginning to end, but Hua Qing didn't care. He just thought that Imperial concubine Xian was too sad. In addition, because of Little Fox, Hua Qing thought that he had already compensated her and gave her a noble status. Imperial concubine Xian looked at Hua Qing's back and bit her lip tightly. Her hand clutched the blanket tightly, and her body was trembling. "Imperial concubine, it's time to drink your medicine." A maid came in with the medicine. Imperial concubine Xian's face was cold. She took the bowl and drank the medicine in one breath. She angrily threw the empty bowl on the ground. With a bang, the broken pieces flew everywhere. "Damned beast!" Hua Qing came out of Imperial concubine Xian's palace and went to Ning Shu's palace. Ning Shu was surprised to see Hua Qing. What was he doing here instead of being intimate with Little Fox? "This concubine pays respects to your majesty." Ning Shu bowed with a smile on his face, as if he was surprised that Hua Qing came. Hua Qing saw the smile on Ning Shu's face and felt a little sick in his heart. He regretted coming here. If Hu-er knew that he came here, she would be angry. As the empress, you need to take care of the harem. Imperial concubine just had a miscarriage, so take care of her. Hua Qing said a few words, then found an excuse to say that he had a memorial to review and left. Ning Shu almost vomited on Hua Qing's face. He had never seen such a disgusting man. He really treated this mother like a housewife. Then they would be lovey-dovey and live a carefree life. He pushed a woman who had a miscarriage to her. Could she kill the emperor? Hua Qing returned to the imperial study and saw Little Fox waiting for him. Hua Qing's heart warmed. He felt that in this cold palace, only Hu-er was special. She brought color to his lonely life. Hua Qing was willing to pamper Little Fox, and he brought everything to Little Fox. Hua Qing hugged Little Fox and let her face him. He muttered to himself, "How good would it be if you were a human?" Little Fox stuck out her tongue and licked Hua Qing's cheek. She also wanted to be a human, but the Transmigration god made her a fox. She didn't want a fox's body at all. Jen will definitely think of a way. Hua Qing said firmly. Little Fox didn't understand what Huaqing meant for a moment, but she still licked Huaqing's cheek. Huang Sang's skin was really good. Licking it felt like eating jelly. The texture was really good, especially the lips. If she was a human now, she would have eaten this guy until there was nothing left. Poor perverted woman like her could only watch. Chapter 243. Ning Shu stayed by Hua Qinhuang's side as he read. Ning Shu didn't want Hua Qinhuang to study the 4 books and 5 classics. Hua Qinhuang wasn't like those pedantic Confucian scholars who passed the imperial examinations. It was better for him to read Sun Tzu's Art of War and learn how to govern. Ning Shu originally wanted to find a teacher for Hua Qinhuang, but when she thought about how Huaqing was on guard against her and the marshal's mansion, she gave up on that idea for now. Qing Zhu walked in and whispered into Ning Shu's ear, "Nyang Nyang, the marshal's mansion sent news." The marshal discovered that someone had placed something that shouldn't be there. The marshal has already destroyed it, but he didn't want to alert the enemy. The marshal said for Nyang Nyang to be careful and not let the cat out of the bag in front of His Majesty. Ning Shu nodded and told Hua Qinhuang not to stay. She went out with Xiao Qingyang for a stroll. Hua Qinhuang and Xiao Qingyang left with a sinister smile. Ning Shu looked at the 2 children's sinister expressions and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Nyang Nyang, the marshal said that His Majesty is looking for a Taoist priest, an outsider, Qing Zhu said. The marshal suspects that His Majesty is going to eat pills now. Ning Shu immediately shook her head. Huaqing was still very young and didn't know how to eat pills to maintain his health. Huaqing was full of energy and didn't need to eat pills to overdraft his body's energy. The ancient emperors loved to eat pills because they wanted to be able to sleep with their concubines when they were old. Why would he suddenly look for a Taoist priest? Ning Shu's eyes darted around and she thought of something. It was the little fox. According to the plot, the little fox should have transformed into a human by now. However, as soon as Ning Shu entered this world, she destroyed the mermaid pearl that allowed the little fox to transform into a human. Since the little fox didn't get this item, it naturally couldn't transform into a human. Huaqing couldn't hold it in anymore and wanted to find an expert to transform the little fox into a human. It seemed that the plot was still rushing forward and wouldn't look back. The little fox was destined to transform into a human. There was no way for the male and female leads to have sex. What kind of love could there be without physical interaction? Tell grandfather that he doesn't need to care about the Taoist priests, Ning Shu said calmly. Huaqing could do whatever he wanted. However, Huaqing's act of hiring a Taoist priest still attracted some criticism. Many ministers in the imperial court told Huaqing not to indulge in these foreign techniques, but Huaqing ignored them. As long as he could turn Hu-Er into a human, he could pay any price. Huaqing really wanted to see what Hu-Er looked like when she turned into a human. She should be beautiful and lively, in sharp contrast to the women in the harem. Even her little temper was so cute. Little Fox didn't know about Huaqing's painstaking efforts and continued to wander around the palace every day. Huaqing also didn't tell her that he would give her a surprise when the time came. However, the little fox had been feeling very unlucky recently. She felt like someone was messing with her. While she was walking, a bucket of feces would fall on her, and even the bucket would fall on her. When she finally overturned the bucket, there was no one around her. Feeling wronged, the little fox went to find Huaqing with the smell of the 5 grains reincarnation item. Feeling wronged, the little fox directly jumped onto Huaqing and purposely rubbed against him. Huaqing endured the stench and didn't mind the little fox. The man and the fox went to take a bath together. Seeing Huaqing like this, the little fox's heart was filled with sweetness. She felt that Huaqing was the best person in the world to her. It was fine if it happened once, but it didn't stop. The little fox cried pitifully at Huaqing. Huaqing angrily said that he wanted to find out who dared to treat his Hu-er like this. Ning Shu knew about this and hurriedly told the two boys to stop. If they continued to cause trouble, they would be caught sooner or later. Hua Qingwang was refreshed. He even walked with the wind. Ning Shu was more concerned about when the little fox turned into a human. When the little fox turned into a human, all the women in the harem would be completely abandoned. From then on, Hua Qingwang only had the little fox in his heart. Ning Shu asked Qing Zhu to pass a message to the marshal's residence, telling them to be careful. Huaqing hadn't come to the harem for a long time. The women in the harem stared in the direction of the imperial study until they were blind, but Huaqing still didn't show up. During this time, something big happened. Beauty Lin, who was disfigured by the little fox and was banished to the Yi court by Huaqing, caught the little fox after a plan and stabbed the little fox in the stomach. When Huaqing found the little fox, Beauty Lin was stabbing the little fox like a madwoman. The little fox was screaming in pain and its body was covered in blood. Huaqing's eyes were bloodshot. He pulled out a guard's knife and chopped off Beauty Lin's head. Beauty Lin's head rolled far away. Her scarred face was hideous. Huaqing hugged the bloody little fox and asked the imperial doctor and Taoist priest to save it. Woo-woo. The little fox cried at Huaqing. The little fox felt like it was going to die. It was in so much pain. Huaqing's tears fell. He said in panic, "You will be fine. You will be fine. I won't allow anything to happen to you." Ning Shu looked at Huaqing's decadent and crazy appearance. His body was trembling. It was as if he had lost the entire world. He collapsed and panicked. He smiled coldly. Ning Shu stood beside the pale-faced imperial noble consort Xian. Although she had undergone meticulous treatment, her body was still very thin. She gave people the feeling that a gust of wind could blow her away. Her chin was much sharper. Imperial noble consort Xian was shocked to see Huaqing revealing his emotions. It was as if he wanted to destroy the world. "Let's go back. The emperor won't let us stay here." Ning Shu stood at the entrance of the imperial study. He looked at the tightly shut door and turned to leave. Imperial noble consort Xian bit her lips and followed Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at the pale-faced imperial noble consort Xian and said, "You did this? This concubine doesn't know what concubine is talking about." Imperial noble consort Xian's pale face revealed a smile. "This concubine has nothing to do with this. This was done by Beauty Lin." Imperial noble consort Xian said indifferently. Ning Shu didn't say anything. Everyone knew who did this. At least Ning Shu was gloating. There was only one word to describe it. Serves them right. The little fox was heavily injured. The imperial physician told Huaqing that there was no hope. Huaqing immediately covered his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. This scared the imperial physician. Huaqing, who was angry and anxious, ordered the guards to kill the imperial physician who said that the little fox was incurable. No matter how much the imperial physician begged, he couldn't change his fate. With the previous example, the other imperial physicians only focused on stopping the little fox's bleeding. They didn't dare to speak. At this moment, a Taoist priest came out and told Huaqing that this was the best time to transform the little fox into a human. If this dragged on, the little fox wouldn't be able to survive. Huaqing immediately acted as a Taoist priest. No matter what, he had to save the little fox's life. Huaqing pulled his hair in pain. Looking at the little fox who was about to die on the bed, he hated that he couldn't take the little fox's place. Such heart-wrenching pain. He didn't know why he was so deeply in love. Now, Huaqing realized that he had really fallen in love with the little fox. Furthermore, it had to be her. No one else could take her place. Thinking that the little fox might leave him, Hua Qing wished that he could bury the entire palace with the little fox. Beauty Lin, that bitch, let her die too comfortably. She should be tortured to death. Chapter 244. Because of Hua Qing, the entire palace was in a gloomy atmosphere. Everyone knew that the emperor's most beloved pet was almost killed by the concubines in the cold palace. Now, the emperor wanted to kill whoever he caught. Everyone was in a state of panic. Ning Shu didn't care. If the female lead died so easily, how could she be called a favored one with great luck? Imperial noble consort Xian was worried about her gains and losses. She found Ning Shu and asked, "Empress, do you think that beast will die?" "No." Ning Shu said indifferently. Imperial noble consort Xian frowned and said unwillingly, "It's injured so badly. How can it not die?" Ning Shu took a sip and said leisurely, "The emperor will do everything to save her." Can the emperor fight with the king of hell for a person? Imperial noble consort Xian said somewhat indignantly, "Imperial noble consort, hearing you say this, why does this concubine feel so awkward? His Majesty treats that beast so well that it's unimaginable." "Let's see." Ning Shu said, "I heard that the imperial tutor's body hasn't been well recently. I have 100-year-old ginseng here for the imperial tutor to recuperate." Imperial noble consort Xian hesitated and said, "Grandfather is old. Although he isn't feeling well, he doesn't need ginseng." "Thank you, Empress." Ning Shu didn't care about Imperial noble consort Xian's rejection. Imperial noble consort Xian and the imperial tutor would agree to her suggestion sooner or later. Hua Qing had locked himself in his palace. He hadn't attended court for almost a month. This was something that had never happened before. The ministers were so anxious that their hair fell off. Every time he attended court, eunuch Chiu, who was by Hua Qing's side, would tell him that the emperor wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be attending court. The ministers and concubines couldn't see Hua Qing, so no one knew what was happening in his palace. Hua Qing like this made everyone nervous. They didn't know what he was going to do. Ning Shu guessed that it was because of the little fox's transformation into a human. Hua Qing was really going to become an emperor who didn't want the country and wanted the beauty. Hua Qingwang found Ning Shu and asked, "What exactly is father doing? Why is he abandoning the matters of the court?" Ning Shu looked at Hua Qingwang, who now looked like a little adult, and could not help but say, "Qingwang really cares about the country and the people." "Mother, I'm serious," Hua Qingwang said seriously. Ning Shu nodded, "Imperial mother is also serious. You don't need to care about what your imperial father does." In the end, Hua Qingwang sighed and left. Ning Shu laughed when he saw the look on his face. "Nyang Nyang, Shaoanzi, who serves His Majesty, is here." Qing Zhu walked in and informed Ning Shu. Ning Shu immediately said, "Let him in." Shaoanzi walked in and bowed to Ning Shu. Then he said, "Nyang Nyang, master said that this servant will come to inform Nyang 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 tonight. Nyang Nyang will be rewarded. And, thank your master for me." Ning Shu had Qing Zhu take out 2 silver ingots. Shaoanzi accepted it and then bowed and left. Qing Zhu and Ning Shu asked, "Nyang Nyang, what is Shaoanzi talking about?" "You will know tonight." Ning Shu already had a guess. Ning Shu thought for a moment and said to Qing Zhu, "Go and invite Imperial noble consort Xian over." "Yes." Imperial noble consort Xian quickly came over. When she saw Ning Shu, she bowed and asked, "Nyang Nyang, why are you looking for me?" "Tonight, we will go and see His Majesty and see if he is hiding a mistress." Ning Shu said indifferently. Imperial noble consort Xian sat down and drank a mouthful of tea. Ning Shu looked at Imperial noble consort Xian's frail body and said, "Your body doesn't seem to be well. I am not an imperial physician, but I can see that your body is severely damaged." "I don't care about my body anymore." I am just struggling at death's door. It doesn't matter if I am well or not. Imperial Noble Consort Xian said indifferently. Ning Shu didn't agree, you shouldn't ruin yourself for a man. Imperial Noble Consort Xian looked at Ning Shu in shock and said, I am sad for my unborn child. Ning Shu and Imperial Noble Consort Xian waited like this. When it was almost midnight, the entire palace was silent. Shaoan Zi finally came. Ning Shu said, Nyang Nyang, please follow me. Ning Shu smiled and said to Imperial Noble Consort Xian, let's go and take a look. Shaoan Zi brought Ning Shu and Imperial Noble Consort Xian to Huaqing's bedroom. Imperial Noble Consort Xian asked Ning Shu softly, Nyang Nyang, what are you doing? It's not what I am doing. It's what the Emperor is doing. Ning Shu said indifferently. Soon, the group arrived at Huaqing's bedroom. Eunuch Qiu was waiting for Ning Shu at the door. When he saw Ning Shu, he bowed and said quietly, Nyang Nyang, please follow me. Be quiet. Ning Shu nodded and followed behind Eunuch Qiu. Imperial Noble Consort Xian hurriedly followed Ning Shu. Eunuch Qiu found a secret place. This place could hear the situation in the bedroom and avoid being discovered by the guards. Ning Shu listened to the situation inside and heard Huaqing's voice and a woman's voice. Ning Shu understood. The little fox had transformed into a human body. The voices inside continued. Huaqing said, having you is like having the world. A crisp female voice sounded, Huaqing, have I really become an adult? I can't believe it. It's true. My Huaqing's voice was filled with boundless affection. Huaqing, what are you doing? Why are you kissing me? Don't you know how I feel about you? Huaqing's voice was filled with suppressed desire. Not long after, she heard ambiguous voices coming from inside. It was mixed with Huaqing's words of love and the little fox's suppressed moans. As expected, Ning Shu had come to confirm the situation. It was similar to what she had expected. Even without her shark pearl, there were other ways for the little fox to transform into a human. After knowing the result, Ning Shu was no longer interested in eavesdropping. He quietly left. Imperial Noble Consort Xian immediately followed Ning Shu. Her face was filled with shock and she hadn't recovered yet. After they had walked far away, Ning Shu asked, Nyang Nyang, what is going on? His Majesty is really hiding a woman. Where did this woman come from? Hasn't this woman always been here? Ning Shu said indifferently, you can ask Shaoan about this. Then you can consider the plan I told you. Imperial Noble Consort Xian was shocked. She seemed to have thought of something but didn't dare to confirm it. She shook her head and said, this is impossible. Impossible. Anything can happen. Ning Shu said to Imperial Noble Consort Xian, it's getting late. Let's go to bed. Imperial Noble Consort Xian couldn't sleep. Her mind was filled with the woman rolling around with Huaqing. Nyang Nyang, she was injured so badly. How could she have survived and become a human? Imperial Noble Consort Xian's eyes were filled with intense hatred. Ning Shu said, it should be the work of those Taoists. Chapter 245. Although the little fox had transformed into a human, Huaqing did not let the little fox out and kept her in the bedroom. Ning Shu could not understand. Could it be that Huaqing had imprisoned the little fox for her entire life? According to the little fox's temperament, if he made her stay in the room and not let her out, wouldn't that be asking for her old life? But not long after, a palace maid found the corpse of an animal in the imperial garden. The animal had been skinned, revealing its bright red flesh. Flies were flying around the corpse. Ning Shu looked at the corpse. Its body was similar to the little fox's, so it should be a fox. Huaqing rushed over. When he saw the corpse, it was as if he was struck by lightning. He immediately roared, "Who is it? Who killed my little fox?" Hua Qing's expression was very sorrowful. He frowned and coldly asked Ning Shu, "There is such a vicious person in the palace who actually killed my little fox. Empress, you must find the murderer. I want to skin him." "Fuck, didn't your little fox already turn into a human? If this fox was really a little fox, you wouldn't have such an exaggerated performance now." Hua Qing wanted the identity of the little fox to disappear. "Empress, I want you to find the murderer." Hua Qing said through gritted teeth. Ning Shu said. Ning Shu bowed and respectfully said, "This concubine understands. This concubine will find the murderer." Ning Shu emphasized the word murderer. Hua Qing even had people make an exquisite little coffin. Then, he put the fox's corpse in the coffin with a sorrowful expression. Ning Shu almost rolled his eyes. So fake. He clearly had a coquettish expression, but he still had to twist his face and make a sorrowful expression. "Who are you trying to disgust?" After the fox was buried, Hua Qing began to go to court. The ministers were dissatisfied that he did not go to court a while ago. Hua Qing sat on the dragon throne with a sickly expression. He told the ministers that he was sick a while ago, so he did not go to court. Hua Qing's bedroom was still heavily surrounded by guards. No one was allowed to enter, causing the atmosphere of the entire palace to be very solemn. The little fox was dead. The concubines in the imperial harem were so excited that they almost set off firecrackers to celebrate. This troublesome fox was finally dead. They had to thank the person who dared to commit such a heinous crime by daring to kill the little fox. Amitabha. Compared to the excited concubines in the inner palace, imperial noble consort Xian's pale face was ashen. She angrily asked Ning Shu, "Empress, what is the emperor trying to do? You've already thought of it, so why are you asking me?" Ning Shu wasn't angry at all. He said to imperial noble consort Xian, "Do you agree with the plan that I told you previously? Do you want to cooperate with me? His Majesty already doesn't want all the women in this harem. The harem is like a figurehead. Why should we still care about this little bit of affection between husband and wife?" Ning Shu faintly said. This was the correct way to torture a scumbag man. Destroy a man with a woman, not a woman against a woman. Imperial noble consort Xian bit her lips tightly. She was struggling. Ning Shu continued, "Don't be anxious. You can think about it slowly. However, I think that after a while, that fox spirit will openly appear in the harem. She will be the favorite of the harem. Maybe the emperor will even disperse the harem for her. When that time comes, we, the women who serve the emperor, won't even have a status after we die. We won't be able to enjoy the incense offerings of our descendants." "Empress, I agree. I will send a letter to the imperial preceptor's residence." Imperial noble consort Xian took a deep breath. Her eyes were firm as she spoke to Ning Shu word by word. Ning Shu smiled. At night, Hua Qing came over. He went straight to the point, "Empress, it's going to be the autumn harvest soon. I will be leaving the palace to harvest the grain with the commoners. I'll just take a look at this year's harvest. Harvest the grain together." To put it bluntly, he was going to put on a show and have fun in front of the commoners. Ning Shu said, "Emperor, do you want me to go?" In this kind of situation, the emperor and the mother of the nation should be together, wearing coarse hemp clothes to harvest the grain. Ning Shu knew that Hua Qing wouldn't bring her along. Hua Qing saw the anticipation and excitement on the empress' face and immediately said, "Empress, you don't need to go. You'll be back soon this time. The palace can't be empty. Also, have you found the culprit I asked you to find?" "I'm investigating, but I don't know who did it. I don't have a single clue." Ning Shu looked at Hua Qing with a distressed expression. An unnatural expression flashed across Hua Qing's face as he said, "No matter what, you must find out." Ning Shu had a dumbfounded expression. Hua Qing left after saying a few words. He didn't talk to Ning Shu for more than the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Ning Shu looked at Hua Qing's hurried back. TSK, TSK, TSK. Her place wasn't some scary place. Why was she so afraid of the little fox getting angry? Nyang Nyang, His Majesty hasn't rested in Nyang Nyang's palace for a long time. Qing Zhu said to Ning Shu somewhat anxiously. Ning Shu drank a mouthful of tea. His Majesty won't come to the inner palace in the future. Don't worry about it. Sleep. The next morning, Ning Shu took the concubines of the inner palace to the palace gates to see Hua Qing off. They sent Hua Qing to harvest the rice. Ning Shu found that there was an additional little eunuch with red lips, white teeth, and creamy skin beside Hua Qing. Even though she was wearing the clothes of a little eunuch, it still couldn't hide her beauty. Her eyes were also lively and beautiful. Although they were large almond eyes, the ends of her eyes were slightly raised. There was a kind of charm and incomparable beauty. Hua Qing saw that Ning Shu's gaze was on the little eunuch and unobtrusively blocked in front of the little eunuch. Ning Shu said, "Empress, take care of the inner palace. Zhen will be back soon." Ning Shu bowed and said with false concern, "Qinxia will remember. Qinxia and my sisters will wait for His Majesty to come back. Be careful, His Majesty." As soon as Ning Shu finished speaking, she heard a slight cold snort. Ning Shu pretended not to hear it. Hua Qing got on the carriage. Eunuch Qiu shouted to set off. The long line headed towards the palace gates. The little eunuch didn't get on the carriage. Instead, he followed the carriage. His eyes kept rolling around, appearing very curious. Ning Shu watched the long line leave the palace gates. Only then did he turn and head back to his own palace. After Hua Qing left, the concubines were even more bored. They dressed up beautifully, but the emperor didn't even look at them. Ning Shu let his concubines go back to their own palaces. If they had nothing to do, they could embroider by themselves. Otherwise, they could find entertainment by themselves. Perhaps it was because Hua Qing hadn't entered the inner palace for a long time. Everyone didn't have any favor. For a time, the relationships between the women eased up. They gathered together to chat when they had nothing to do. If they didn't find something to do, they would go crazy from boredom. Imperial noble consort Xian's gaze was fixed on the palace gates. Ning Shu asked, "That little eunuch is the little fox, right? It's so strange. How did a fox turn into a human? Extremely beautiful. She is indeed a fox spirit." Imperial noble consort Xian said coldly. Chapter 246. Ning Shu felt that Hua Qing did not go to the autumn harvest. Instead, he went to spend time with the little fox. He left behind all the women in the palace and ran off to play with the adulterous couple. She still had to stay in the palace to help Hua Qing manage all the women in the palace. Damn it! Ning Shu wanted to kill the emperor again. Ning Shu did not care about Hua Qing's matters. Instead, he accompanied Hua Qingwang to study. Some things were not easy to do when Hua Qing was around. After Hua Qing left, Ning Shu immediately hired a teacher for Hua Qingwang. This teacher was found by Marshal Shao. Ning Shu and imperial noble consort Xian secretly sped up their plans. Half a month passed. Hua Qing, who was so happy that he forgot about home, finally returned. But when he returned, he brought a peerless beauty with him. When Hua Qing returned, he brought the little fox in front of Ning Shu. He directly said to Ning Shu, "Empress, this is Jin Ling." The little fox Jin Ling did not bow to Ning Shu. Hua Qing did not say anything. Ning Shu calmly said, "Your Majesty, where did such a beautiful woman come from? Your Majesty went to the autumn harvest and brought back such a peerless beauty. This is the daughter of the county magistrate of Chu County, not far from the capital. I like her very much and brought her into the palace. Huaqing looked at the little fox with a loving gaze. Ning Shu smiled and looked at the little fox. She was wearing a pink satin palace dress. She did not wear any makeup. Her white skin had a slightly pink luster. There was a youthful and charming look between her brows. However, her figure was curvaceous. Her eyes were very lively and cute. When one looked at her, one would feel that they were captivated by this pair of eyes that were full of intelligence and cunning. She was charming with an innocent cunning. She could not be any more charming. Ning Shu finally understood Huaqing's intentions. First, he killed a fox and skinned it. After all, not every fox had a beautiful golden fur like the little fox. Then, after leaving the palace, he gave the little fox a proper identity. Huaqing really put in a lot of effort for the little fox. Ning Shu said meaningfully, that parental official in Chu County is really emitting smoke from his ancestral grave. To be able to give birth to such a peerless beauty in the world, Your Majesty, please arrange a place for Qinxie to live. I don't need you to arrange a place for me to stay. I want to stay with Huaqing, said the little fox, Jin Ling. The little fox looked at Ning Shu with vigilance and hostility. She had been a fox before, so she didn't feel much for these women. Now that she had become a human and had given her body and mind to Huaqing, the little fox was filled with hostility towards these harem women. The man she liked could only like her back. Love was selfish. The little fox glared at Huaqing in annoyance. Really, if she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have returned to the palace. Now that she was a human, she might as well go sightseeing on the mainland and flirt with the little fresh meats instead of guarding Huaqing who had so many women. Seeing that his beloved was unhappy, Huaqing hurriedly comforted her with a doting gaze. Ning Shu watched as the two of them looked at each other lovingly in front of her. He didn't care if others could take it or not. Miss, have I seen you before? You give me a very familiar feeling. I keep feeling like I've seen you somewhere before. Ning Shu narrowed her eyes slightly, as if trying to recall where she had seen her before. Huaqing stood in front of the little fox. Jin Ling. Ning Shu said, Jin Ling has lived in Chu County since she was young. How could you possibly have seen her, Your Majesty? There's no need to arrange a place for her to stay. I'll do it myself. Huaqing then led the little fox away. The little fox turned around and playfully stuck out her tongue at Ning Shu. Her contempt for Ning Shu was obvious. After they left the palace, Huaqing tapped the little fox's nose in annoyance. He said dotingly, You're such an eccentric girl. She's the empress now. Don't go against her. It won't do you any good. Humph, the little fox raised her head and bit Huaqing's chin. She then said proudly, I just don't like her. Huaqing, you can only have me in your heart. You're not allowed to have anyone else. Otherwise, I'll leave the palace and find other handsome men. Huaqing patted the little fox's butt lightly. You're mine. I won't allow you to find other men. I'll kill whoever you find. Let's see who dares to touch you in the future. No one dares to touch my beloved. Yes, I'm not yours. The little fox heard Huaqing's words and retorted. Her heart was filled with sweetness. Huaqing was so good and so handsome. She couldn't bear to leave him. Huaqing lowered his head and went to the little fox's ear. He bit the little fox's ear and blew hot air into it. If you're not mine, then who are you? The little fox's body went limp and her face turned red. She looked at Huaqing with watery eyes. Huaqing was aroused by the little fox's gaze. He immediately carried the little fox and went to the bedroom. After a round of passion, the little fox drew circles on Huaqing's chest with her white and tender fingers. She said to Huaqing, Huaqing, I hate those women in your harem. And the empress. I hate her. I especially hate the way she looks at me. Huaqing grabbed the little fox's hand and kissed it. She won't be the empress soon. You're the only one in my heart. You're the only one who's fit to be my empress. After Huaqing and the little fox left, Imperial noble consort Xian rushed over to Ning Shu and asked, "Is that woman back?" This concubine heard that His Majesty brought back a woman. "Have some tea." "She's back," Ning Shu said calmly. "She's the daughter of a 9th-rank Sesame official." Huaqing didn't arrange a prominent family background for the little fox. If her background was too prominent, it would be easy for people to investigate. Besides, aristocratic families had records of their descendants. Imperial noble consort Xian bit her lips. Ning Shu asked, "Imperial noble consort, when will our plan be carried out?" "There's no rush. This concubine knows you want revenge, but things have to be done slowly." Ning Shu waved his hand. "Now isn't a good time." Imperial noble consort Xian sighed. Ning Shu said mournfully, "This concubine wants revenge for her child." Revenge. This concubine's heart is filled with revenge. "There's no rush," Ning Shu said calmly. Anything that crossed the line would cause a backlash. When the concubines in the harem found out that the emperor brought a woman back, they all rushed to Ning Shu's palace. They wanted to know what kind of woman made the emperor break the rules and bring her back to the palace. The women in the palace had to go through 3 trials and 5 generals. They had to be selected layer by layer before they could become the emperor's concubine. However, that woman was brought back directly. All the concubines felt very uneasy. First, it was a fox that stole all of the emperor's attention. Now, there was a woman who was said to be extremely beautiful. There was really no end to it. Ning Shu only said that the woman the emperor liked was indeed very beautiful. Then, the harem spread that the woman the emperor brought back was as beautiful as a fairy. Chapter 247. The little fox was temporarily staying in Huaqing's palace, making all the concubines jealous. Now, Huaqing didn't enter the harem at all. Every day, he pampered women who came out of nowhere. Huaqing hadn't entered the harem for almost half a year. In the past, Huaqing rarely entered the harem, but at least he would let the concubines serve him. Now, he didn't even enter the harem, which made the concubines' hearts itch. If they had explosives in their hands, Ning Shu suspected that these women would blow up Huaqing's palace. It would be best if they killed all the women in the palace. Huaqing doted on the little fox a lot. Other than when he went to court, Huaqing spent all his time with the little fox. Ning Shu couldn't understand why Huaqing didn't give the little fox a position. Could it be that he wanted to overthrow the marshal's residence and make the little fox empress? In the plot, the little fox eventually became the empress and her son became the emperor. Then, the playful little fox took Huaqing to travel the world. She was so lucky. "Your Highness, the people from the Ministry of Works are working on the palace not far from the emperor. I think they're going to build a house," Qing Zhu told Ning Shu. Building a house? How many houses were there in the palace? Moreover, the buildings in the palace were all planned. Suddenly building a house would break the overall layout of the palace. I asked little Anzi. He said that they're building a house for Miss Jean Ling and that Miss Jean Ling personally designed it, Qing Zhu said. The people from the Ministry of Works didn't want to take over at first. They advised the emperor that every part of the palace was planned and that it was related to the fate of the country and the gathering of the dragon bloodline. Miss Jean Ling said that the people from the Ministry of Works were superstitious. Then, the emperor personally ordered that everything be built according to Miss Jean Ling's design. Ning Shu was speechless. Okay, rich and willful. Because Huaqing didn't give the little fox a position, the servants in the palace all called the little fox Mississippi. But secretly, they despised this woman. She was with the emperor without any status. Wasn't she having illicit relations without a matchmaker? The little fox from the modern world didn't care about this at all. In her opinion, she and Wuxia were truly in love. Now, they were boyfriend and girlfriend. It had nothing to do with others. Even if the little fox heard these words, she didn't care. As long as she was happy, anything was fine. The little fox wanted to give Wuxia a surprise, so she kept urging the people from the Ministry of Works to hurry up and fix the house. Apart from that, the little fox brought many changes to the harem. For example, she gave Wuxia some exotic food and often performed modern dances for him. She also performed some seductive dances and pole dances. This made Wuxia even more fascinated with the little fox. He couldn't figure out what was going on in her mind. Wuxia felt very blessed to have met her. He felt that his life had been in vain. Wuxia even thanked the heavens for letting him meet her. At this time, Wuxia had completely forgotten that there was a group of concubines waiting for him in the harem. The Ministry of Works built the house very quickly. Soon, a modern-style villa was built next to Wuxia's bedroom. Ning Shu looked at the villa and wanted to cover his face. It was really strange that such a white villa had suddenly appeared in the majestic and dignified palace. It completely destroyed the dignity and wealth that the palace should have. In short, it was as awkward as it could be. Wuxia loved the house and its crow. He liked this style of house very much. When he heard her say that this was their love nest, Wuxia's heart was burning. He liked this house even more. In order to shock these ignorant ancient people, the little fox generously invited the concubines from the harem to her villa to attend the party. Wuxia was afraid that no one would attend the little fox's party and embarrass the little fox. Therefore, he ordered all the concubines to attend the party. Even Ning Shu, the empress, was no exception. The concubines who came to attend the party all looked at the villa with wide eyes and strange expressions. The little fox was proud. You ancient people have never seen a modern villa. Every time Ning Shu looked at this villa, her heart would itch. She wanted to find someone to tear down this house. It was really awkward to look at. Ning Shu felt that she had obsessive-compulsive disorder. It was a party, but it was just barbecue. The little fox even explained to the concubines that it was barbecue. Looking at the concubines' confused expressions, the little fox could only shrug. This was the generation gap. There was no way to communicate. These concubines didn't touch the barbecue. The smoky food looked dirty. These concubines ate very carefully in the palace. They didn't eat this kind of food. Seeing the little fox's bold manner of eating, the concubines widened their eyes. Did the emperor like such a boorish woman? Ning Shu narrowed his eyes at the little fox. He saw the red mark on her neck. He could see how intimate she was with Wuxia. These concubines came here to see Wuxia. However, when the party ended, they didn't see Wuxia. They could only leave in disappointment. The little fox looked at the expressions of these concubines with disdain. These people were really hypocrites. They said that they were here to attend her party, but they were still thinking about her Wuxia. She had already informed Wuxia not to come. Seeing these people's disappointed expressions, the little fox was secretly pleased. Ning Shu looked at the little fox indifferently. He didn't know what class the little fox was before she transmigrated. Why did he feel that she was so lowly? She wanted to beat the ancients with her insignificant modern knowledge. Ning Shu only had 3 words. Haha. This little fox didn't have any rules. She never greeted anyone. She was simply challenging the ancient feudal system. Alright, with the emperor as her backing, she could be so willful. Wuxia would be scolded to death by the imperial censors sooner or later. The little fox was a maverick in the palace. She treated her maids very well. She even said that everyone was equal and no one was nobler than another. Ning Shu felt that if he was this maid, he would definitely give her a big slap. Your sister, if everyone was equal, why was he serving her and not the other way around? Her words were pleasant to hear. TSK, TSK, TSK. Ning Shu didn't know how to evaluate the little fox. Hua Qing liked her character and personality so much. Was Hua Qing's eyes covered with lard? Or was he used to seeing elegant ladies and was interested in the little fox's overly lively personality? The little fox also invented mahjong, poker, and the like. It created a gambling craze in the palace. Even the concubines in the harem were addicted to these gambling games. With the new games, the concubines didn't miss the emperor every day. This was one of the good things the little fox did. In short, the palace was a mess. Coupled with Hua Qing's unprincipled favoritism, the little fox caused chaos wherever she went. The unlucky ones were always others. Hua Qing, your concubine cheated in mahjong with me. It's fine. Punish that concubine by grounding her for a month. Hua Qing, I'm sorry. I tore your dragon robe. It's all because you suddenly hugged me last night. I got too excited. It's fine. Chapter 248. At night, lightning flashed and deafening thunder boomed in the sky. It was raining cats and dogs. Suddenly, there was a loud clap of thunder that made the entire palace tremble. Panicked cries could be heard in the storm. Fire, fire. The villa next to Hua Qing's bedroom was on fire. The fire was so strong that even the heavy rain could not extinguish it. The fire lit up the entire palace. The palace became restless. Ning Shu got up from the bed and said to Hua Qinhuang, it's about to start. Are you afraid? I'm not afraid. Hua Qinhuang clenched his fists tightly. His body was trembling and his face was red. Ning Shu said, I'm not afraid. If we fail, we will die. Qing Zhu helped Ning Shu put on his clothes. Hua Qinhuang got up from the bed and grabbed the corner of Ning Shu's clothes tightly. Mother, I'm not afraid. Ning Shu nodded. Holding Hua Qinhuang's hand, he walked towards the burning villa. Qing Zhu and the palace maids held umbrellas for Ning Shu and Hua Qinhuang. It was raining heavily and a lot of rainwater had accumulated on the ground. It almost drowned their shoes. When they arrived at the villa, many palace maids and guards were putting out the fire. Hua Qing and Little Fox stood under the roof of the bedroom in their pajamas. Little Fox's eyes were red. She felt her heart ache when she saw her efforts being burned. There were so many places in the palace, but only her villa was burned. Her villa. Little Fox's heart ached. She had her own mansion in ancient times, but it was struck by lightning. She felt that the heavens were playing with her. Seeing Little Fox like this, Hua Qing quickly put out the fire. Even with so many eunuchs and guards putting out the fire did not die down. It exploded with crackling sounds. Hua Qing's face was cold and his brows were tightly knitted. Under the flickering light of the fire, he was incomparably cold. Ning Shu held Hua Qinhuang's hand and walked in front of Hua Qing. She bowed to Hua Qing. Greetings, Your Majesty. Hua Qing glanced at Ning Shu and his gaze stopped on Hua Qinhuang. He said impatiently, why did you bring the child here so late? Since something like this happened, Qinxia naturally had to come. Qinhuang was worried about His Majesty and thought that His Majesty was living in the villa. He was afraid that something would happen to His Majesty, so he begged Qinxia to come along. Ning Shu said faintly. Hua Qing's heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, he didn't stay in the villa tonight. Otherwise, he would be in trouble. Hu was a woman who knew how to have fun. Sometimes, she would have sex in the villa and basically didn't stay in the villa at night. Hu said that the newly repaired house wasn't suitable for people to live in. Moreover, Hu said that she preferred to sleep in the dragon bed. Otherwise, he and Hu would be trapped in the villa tonight. Hua Qing heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but reach out to hug the little fox with one hand. He comforted her, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Ning Shu was speechless. At the very least, his wife and son were beside him. Could he restrain himself a little? Hua Qingwang grabbed Ning Shu's hand and watched as Hua Qingwang hugged the little fox. His eyes were dark and looked very treacherous under the light of the fire. The fire burned fiercely. Even though there were so many people, they still couldn't save the villa. In the end, the villa that only had wood left collapsed with a creak. It looked especially miserable. Ning Shu was about to die from laughter in his heart. This dazzling villa was finally gone. "Your Majesty, something bad has happened." An official hurriedly ran over and knelt in front of Hua Qingwang. He didn't care at all even though the rain was pouring down on him. Hua Qing frowned. "Imperial astronomer, why did you enter the palace?" "This humble subject is here to tell your Majesty that this fire is a warning to the heavens." The imperial astronomer knelt on the ground in a daze. Just as the imperial astronomer finished speaking, the sound of chaotic footsteps came over. Hua Qing saw that it was actually the civil and military officials. Then, one by one, they knelt in front of him. Hua Qing coldly said, "My beloved officials, what are you doing? Zhen didn't summon you to enter the palace. How did you enter the palace? What are the imperial guards doing? Your Majesty, please forgive this subject for coming unannounced." The Grand Preceptor said to Hua Qing. "This matter is truly too urgent. It concerns the future of the country. This subject can only brave the world and enter the palace." This Grand Preceptor was Imperial Noble Consort Xian's grandfather. Ning Shu looked at the white-bearded marshal in full military attire. He was the original owner's grandfather. Victory or defeat would be decided today. Seeing the mass of people kneeling below, Hua Qing had a bad feeling in his heart. He coldly said, "If there is anything to say, say it tomorrow. Zhen won't argue with my beloved officials for their improper actions today. Your Majesty, this matter is too important. Let's listen to what these trusted officials have to say." This concubine thinks that there is something urgent. Ning Shu bowed and said to Hua Qing. Hua Qing frowned. Ning Shu scolded, "The concubines of the imperial harem are not allowed to interfere with government affairs. Empress, you are overstepping your bounds." Hua Qing, "I'm a bit scared. Let's go inside." When the little fox saw this scene, her legs went weak. She pulled on Hua Qing's sleeve and said pitifully, "How dare you call His Majesty by his name? How unruly." An imperial censor straightened his back and scolded the little fox righteously. Hua Qing's expression immediately turned ugly. He couldn't bear to scold her, but he was scolded by an official so rudely. When he saw her's frightened appearance, Hua Qing coldly said, "Imperial censor Wu, yelling in front of Zhen like this. Do you have any manners? Your Majesty, please forgive me." This subject was too impatient. Although the imperial censor said sorry, his back was still straight. He clearly didn't think he was wrong. His face looked like he was ready to die at any time. It was as if he wasn't afraid of death at all. Ning Shu saw that Hua Qing's body was shaking with anger. He stood in front of the little fox as if to shield her from the storm. Ning Shu's eyes flashed. Hua Qing really did love the little fox, but the little fox relied on Hua Qing's love to do things without fear. She had never thought of lessening Hua Qing's burden. He really didn't know how long Hua Qing could block for the little fox. Wouldn't he be tired? Hua Qing took a deep breath and said coldly, "What do you want to say? It looks like you want to force the emperor to abdicate. This subject doesn't dare. Your Majesty, please forgive us." The minister knelt in the rain. His official robes were soaked. Ning Shu was afraid that his grandfather's body wouldn't be able to take it. "We don't dare, we don't dare. You are forcing the emperor to abdicate. What do you want?" Hua Qing's hands were clenched tightly behind his back. His body was trembling slightly. Hua Qing's eyes were deep and his expression was calm. However, there was uneasiness and an unknown fear in his eyes. Your Majesty, this subject observes the stars at night. The morning star is dim, but the demon star beside it is bright. This means that there is an evildoer around His Majesty. This fire is heaven's warning to His Majesty. The imperial astronomer said agitatedly, the fire falling from the sky is heaven's warning to Yen Kingdom. A bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense. Hua Qing's body was trembling. An evildoer was causing trouble. These people were simply audacious. Chapter 249. The little fox didn't understand what the imperial astronomer was saying, but when she heard the word evildoer, her eyes widened in horror. Was he talking about her? Although she was a fox, she was still human. She wasn't an evildoer. The little fox clutched tightly to Hua Qing's clothes, her heart filled with unease and fear. Astronomical phenomena are nonsense. Imperial astronomer, I asked you to check the weather, not to exaggerate things like astrology. Hua Qing said coldly, I don't have any evildoers by my side. You're overthinking things. Your Majesty. The imperial astronomer kowtowed to the ground and cried out mournfully, Your Majesty, you must believe this humble subject's words. Planet Qiming is currently dim and lightless. Planet Qiming is the brightest star and represents Your Majesty. But now that it's dim, I'm afraid it won't just affect Your Majesty, but also the entire country, Your Majesty. The imperial astronomer kowtowed to the ground, his forehead bruised and his expression pained. The little fox was so frightened that she clutched Hua Qing's clothes tightly and hid behind him. She felt even more uneasy. Your Majesty, it's better to believe than not. Let the imperial astronomer investigate if there's an evildoer by Your Majesty's side. This way, Your Majesty and the ministers can rest assured, Ning Shu said gently. Hua Qing turned his head to look at Ning Shu. His eyes were dark and fierce as he roared at Ning Shu, shut up. Ning Shu closed his mouth and didn't say anything. Hua Qingwang saw his mother being scolded and wanted to say something, but Ning Shu squeezed his hand and he quieted down. Your Majesty, Her Majesty the Empress is thinking for Your Majesty. Please forgive Her Majesty. Dressed in armor, the white-bearded Marshal Shao was practically begging Hua Qing. It made one's heart ache inexplicably. Hua Qing was angered to death by Marshal Zhao's behavior. It was as if he was an incapable ruler who couldn't distinguish between right and wrong. Your Majesty, the most important thing now is to find out who the evildoer is and who the person who is harmful to the country of Yen is. There are so many buildings in the palace, but why was this strange building destroyed by the heavenly lightning? This kind of thing shouldn't exist in the palace. Your Majesty, the woman beside you is a demon. The Grand Preceptor was heartbroken. Your Majesty, you have been bewitched by the woman beside you. She is a demon that has transformed into a human to bring disaster to the Yen Kingdom. When Hua Qing heard the Grand Preceptor's words, he was so angry that he almost fainted. He had clearly concealed Hu's identity well and was very careful. How did these people know that Hu had transformed into a human? Hua Qing's eyes were red. He gritted his teeth tightly and the muscles on his face were trembling. Ning Shu hurriedly pulled Hua Qingwang back and asked in fear, Your Majesty, didn't you say she was the county magistrate's daughter? How could it be a monster? Your Majesty, come over quickly. Don't stand with the monster. Shut up, poisonous woman. When Hua Qing heard Ning Shu calling Hu a demon, he roared, She's not a demon at all. Hua Qing looked around and saw the Empress hugging Hua Qingwang tightly. A group of ministers were kneeling in the rain. He felt powerless as if he was against the world. Behind him, Hu was trembling in fear. Your Majesty, you are really muddle-headed. You can't see such an obvious fact. Marshal Shao said, This woman is a fox spirit that has transformed into a human. She wants to shake the country. Does your majesty not know about King Zhou of Shang and Su Daji? Your majesty, are you going to ignore the Yan kingdom? Since this demoness entered the palace, many things have happened. She has harmed the imperial heirs and has no regard for seniority. Your majesty has been bewitched by this demon and doesn't care about it. If this continues, the country will no longer be a country and the ministers will no longer be ministers. The Grand Preceptor knelt in the rain, his body swaying. He was supported by the ministers beside him, but he still insisted, Your Majesty, for the sake of the people of the Wei Kingdom, please kill this demoness and return the Yan Kingdom to its former glory. Your Majesty, please kill this demoness and return the Yan Kingdom to its former glory, the ministers shouted in unison. They kowtowed as if they were not afraid of pain. The little fox's face turned pale with fright. She couldn't help but cry out, You stubborn old fogies. You want me to die because of a single star? You're treating human life like grass. You'll suffer retribution for this. This demoness has brought disaster to the Yan Kingdom. She deserves to die. The Grand Preceptor looked at the little fox with disgust. The little fox was stunned. How was she a demoness? How could she bring disaster to the country? How could a woman like her have such ability? The little fox was afraid and wronged. She had no grudge against these people. Why should they decide her fate so easily? Hua Qing's blood boiled in his chest. A bloody taste rose in his throat. His head was throbbing with pain. He was angry and afraid. He was afraid that he would not be able to protect her. Hua Qing swallowed the bloody taste in his mouth and said calmly, There is no evidence to prove that this woman is a demoness. Your Majesty, this demoness was transformed from the fox beside your Majesty. The imperial astronomer pointed at the little fox. Hua Qing immediately retorted, The little fox by my side has already been killed. It's ridiculous that a beast can transform into a human. If I want officials like you to guard my country, I'd rather give up the country of Wei. Your Majesty, I have solid evidence today. That is why I am purging you. The Grand Preceptor said, Shaoan Zi, who is by your Majesty's side, can prove it. Shaoan Zi. Hua Qing looked in shock at Shaoan Zi, who walked over with his back bent. Then, he knelt down with a plop. Shaoan Zi greets your Majesty and everyone. There was no fear on Shaoan Zi's face. Hua Qing felt uneasy when he saw Shaoan Zi like this. He snorted and said, Shaoan Zi, be careful with your words. If you lie, I will have your head. Shaoan Zi kowtowed and said, I will definitely tell the truth. The woman beside your Majesty is transformed from the golden fox. The dead fox in the imperial garden was made by your Majesty. Your Majesty asked me to skin the dead fox. Shaoan Zi kowtowed to the ground. If I lie, I will fall into the 18th level of hell and never be reincarnated. Shaoan Zi said coldly. His words were like a knife that scraped Hua Qing's body. Hua Qing did not expect that the dog beside him would bite him back. This damned eunuch actually dared to say such things. Hua Qing shouted coldly, Shaoan Zi, I have treated you well. How dare you betray me? I did not betray your Majesty. I am loyal to the entire Yan Kingdom. Your Majesty connives with the evildoer and has an illicit relationship with the evildoer. Even if I am killed by your Majesty now, I will die without regrets. I only hate that I cannot kill the evildoer with my own hands. Shaoan Zi looked at the little fox with hatred in his eyes. Do you hate me? The little fox could not figure out how she had offended him. Of course I hate you. You made the emperor cruel. As a human, I was actually teased by a beast like you. Shaoan Zi said hatefully. Ning Shu smiled faintly in his heart. No matter how small the nail was, it would still hurt. This was the price of being willful. Chapter 250. Wuxia regretted not taking down the marshal's residence. He wanted to take it slow, but with Hu by his side, he was afraid that if he was too aggressive, someone would hurt Hu. He wanted to slowly take the military power from old Marshal Zhao's hands. But now, he was forced to kill Hu by these officials. Wuxia wanted nothing more than to chop these officials up. Time waits for no one. Now, he was a fish on the chopping board. He couldn't even protect the woman he loved. Wuxia gripped the little fox's cold hand tightly. His eyes swept across the faces of these righteous officials. He calmly and coldly said, "I've said it before. The woman beside me is not some golden fox in disguise. Little Anzi, that dog of a slave, actually dares to frame me. Emperor, why are you so stubborn?" The old Grand Tutor straightened his back and said harshly, "If the emperor doesn't kill this evildoer who brings disaster to the country, this old official will kill himself here with all the officials. This old official doesn't want the emperor to do anything that will harm the foundation of our ancestors, Emperor. Emperor, please kill this evildoer who brings disaster to the country." The officials knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Wuxia with serious expressions. Wuxia was so angry that he staggered. Were they threatening him with death? Wuxia didn't care about the lives of these officials at all, but he couldn't be labeled as muddle-headed. "Wuxia, I'm so scared." When the little fox heard these people saying that they wanted to kill her, she was scared out of her wits. She felt very wronged. She was just a woman. What did she have to do with these people if she wanted to be happy? These people just wanted to kill her. Wuxia tightly held the little fox's hand and said firmly, "With this one here, no one dares to do this to you. Emperor, you can't keep this witch alive. She really is a fox in disguise. This official has proof." Marshal Zhao knelt and cupped his hands to Wuxia. He waved his hand to the deputy general beside him. Then, guards came over with Taoists. "Tell me the truth. Is the woman next to the emperor a fox spirit?" Marshal Zhao fiercely said to these Taoists. Several Taoist priests knelt on the ground. The rain soaked their Taoist robes, making them look miserable. They looked haggard and dispirited. The Taoist priests looked at each other and finally said, "The woman beside the emperor is a fox spirit. When the emperor found us, he wanted the golden fox to turn into a human." "Ridiculous, this is simply ridiculous," Wuxia shouted. "How can an animal turn into a human? Make a human for me." Wuxia felt very uneasy. These people had come prepared. He was really careless. He should have killed old man Zhao first. Then, the civil officials and military generals would not have joined forces to force him to abdicate. Animals can't transform into humans. It was me who offered the 1,000-year-old mermaid pearl. The golden fox swallowed the mermaid pearl to transform into a human, an elderly Taoist said hurriedly. "Ning Shu, didn't they say that there was only one shark pearl in the world? Why was there another one?" You. Wuxia pointed at the people kneeling on the ground below. The moisture from the rain hit his body. It was very cold. Wuxia suddenly felt very cold. "Are you going to rebel and force me to abdicate?" Wuxia roared. "We don't dare. We can only disregard life and death and get rid of the evildoers around us. The evildoers who bring disaster to the country." The Grand Preceptor said righteously, "Your Majesty, you have been bewitched by this evildoer. You can't see the country and the people. If you let this evildoer do whatever she wants, I'm afraid that the Yan kingdom will be destroyed." Wuxia was so angry that his body was trembling. He forced himself to calm down and said coldly, "Jin Ling is just a woman. She can't overturn the Yan kingdom. You think too highly of her." Wuxia knew her. She didn't care about glory and wealth. She didn't like power and liked to play. How could she overturn the country? "Your Majesty, These ministers are working hard for the Yan kingdom. Everything they do is for the country and the people. Your Majesty, you should give up on Miss Jean Ling. Humans and demons are different. Ning Shu bowed and said to Huaqing. When Huaqing heard Ning Shu's words, he immediately said sternly, "Shut up. I suspect that you are jealous of Jean Ling. That's why you did this. Empress, your Shao family has a lot of troops and wants to rebel. I have known about your ambitions for a long time." Ning Shu's face was immediately filled with grievances, as if she had been wronged. She said, "Your Majesty, Qinxia is just a woman in the imperial harem. How could I have the ability to make the ministers do such a thing? You are a woman. Jean Ling is also a woman. Why did you do this to her? Are you happy to hit her when she is down? I really misjudged you." Ning Shu was speechless. He was speechless. He wasn't going after little fox, he was going after you. Ning Shu wiped his tears with a handkerchief. The little fox looked at Ning Shu unkindly and said resentfully, "Your Majesty, even if you hate me, you can't put Huaqing in such a dilemma." Ning Shu, "Bah, the one who put Huaqing in such a dilemma is not me. It is you. It is your willfulness that put Huaqing in such a dilemma." Ning Shu didn't speak. He kept wiping his tears. His aggrieved look made people feel sad. "What right do you have to point at my mother? She is the empress of the Yan kingdom. She manages the harem diligently so that my father has no worries. My mother did nothing wrong. Instead, after you came to the palace, the entire palace was in a mess," Hua Qingwang said disdainfully. Hua Qingwang said disdainfully, "You don't have proper etiquette. You never salute my mother when you see her. You're really an animal." Hua Qingwang, "Shut up." Huaqing shouted at Hua Qingwang with bloodshot eyes. "You have no right to speak here." Hua Qingwang was frightened by Huaqing's ferocious face. He burst into tears and shouted, "Father, you don't want me anymore. Father has an evildoer. You don't even want your wife and children. Father, wake up. Father, wah 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 wah." Ning Shu hugged Hua Qingwang. He wiped his tears and said, "Qingwang, don't cry. Qingwang, don't cry. Mother, father only wants the vixen. He doesn't want me and mother anymore." Hua Qingwang cried. This desolate look really made people's hearts ache. Huaqing was instantly labeled as someone who had abandoned his wife and child. You. Huaqing's blood boiled in his chest. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He stared at Ning Shu and Hua Qingwang with wide eyes. He said to Hua Qingwang with hatred, "Little wolf, you actually want to kill your father." "Father, I didn't. I just want father to leave this vixen. Mother and I can't live without father." Hua Qingwang's face was full of sorrow. Huaqing looked at Hua Qingwang and said coldly, "The blood of the Shao family flows in your body. You have wild ambitions. When you were born, I should have strangled you to death." Huaqing's sudden words stunned all the officials. Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. Now, the emperor wanted to kill his son. He was the same as King Zhou of Shang. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.